Hello and welcome to International Geoscience Colloquium organized by Christ College Autonomous, University of Kerala, University of Exeter, UK, University of Zululand, South Africa, supported by Ministry of Earth Science, Government of India. I'm sure you all are eagerly waiting for the presentations to begin. Without any delay, we can start it. Let me invite our session chair, Dr. Sajin Kumar KS, to take over the session. Over to you, sir. Sajin sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I am able to hear you, Asha. So Asha, whether I was not able to log into the Google Meet with the link which you have provided. Can you permit me to join?
Sure, sir. Let me check it.
Asha, whether someone is operating the Google Meet?
Yes, sir. We are trying. Even we have some problem in logging, so we are doing it.
Okay. Actually, for the participants, this notice, actually, Zoom is not permitted in most of the government organizations, especially the central government organizations. So the today's speaker is Thabas Martha. Actually, he's working with ISRO. So we are trying to join through Google Meet, and that will be streamed through YouTube, and that YouTube will be projected through the Zoom link here. So actually, they're facing a little technical snag in getting connected to Google Meet. That's why the delay. Asha, please let me know once the problem is solved.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sajin sir, there is a technical delay from ISRO. So we have an announcement regarding our college. Can I do it now?
Sure, sure.
Okay, a few words about our college. Christ College was started in 1956 and was elevated to autonomous status by UGC in 2015. For the last 2 consecutive years, college was re-accredited with NAC A grade, highlighting the merit of the institution. Our own department, Department of Geology and Environmental Science, was founded in 1981 and offers 2 undergraduate programs in geology and 2 postgraduate programs in applied geology and environmental science. The department also offers PhD programs in geology and environmental science under the University of Kerala. And this year, we are offering a 5 year integrated course in geology with physics and chemistry as subsidiary subjects. And the eligibility criteria include 12th pass with science. And selection is purely done on merit basis. And college is also providing scholarship for international students, meritorious international students, as a sustenance allowance. And there will be also other scholarships available for international students. They can check out the corresponding websites to know more about those scholarships. And the eligible students can apply through our college website www.christcollegeijk.edu.in on or before 16th of November 2020.
Hi, Tabas. So before that, I think I can utilize the time for introducing the speaker now. Tabas is online now, but he is not able to talk. So Dr. Lindo, can I introduce Dr. Tabas? Actually, Lindo, your mic is mute. Tabas, you are able to hear us?
Dr. Sajin, could you please
Yes.
turn off your mic in the Zoom? It's multiple.
I am unmute in Zoom.
I think you will have to mute in Zoom.
Yes, it is mute in Zoom. Some howling sound is there.
It's coming multiple times. All right, sir. It's okay. It's clear here.
Mobile.
It's ready, sir.
So whether Asha, can you say that? Okay. Asha, can you say that you are able to hear me through Zoom?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce us. In 1998, when one of my friend Sajan Arnair from ISM came to Trivandrum to meet me and to do a field work at Putteti Cyanide in Kanyakumari district. He was accompanied by one of his friend, that is Tabas Martha. Actually, I met him for the first time in 1998, probably within the premises of my college, University College. And from there, we know each other. And in 2012, we got again acquainted during a conference on landslides in UT. And later on, our association progressed, and we came up with the new two publications, one with a highly cited one, and other just published, and the third one is on the anvil. And saying about his educational history, Berhampur University in Odisha. In 99, M.Tech from ISM, and 2011, PhD from University of Twente, the Netherlands.
Sajin, I'm not getting any audio.
You are not able to hear me? You are able to hear me? In Zoom, whether you are able to hear me, Dr. Lindo?
We can hear, sir. Here it's audible.
Okay. So he have completed his PhD from ITC Netherlands. He is also a disciple of last day speaker, Professor Kees van Westen. And from 2001 onwards, he is a permanent scientist in National Remote Sensing Center under Indian Space Research Organization. He joined as Scientist C, and now he is Scientist F. And he is a member of several technical committees, as well as he received so many awards and honors. Today, as of today, his citation is 1,424. That what doesn't testify or is a testimony of his credentials. He is working in a government organization.
Dr. Sajin?
Yes?
I just interrupt. Could you please turn on your mic in Google Meet and off in Zoom?
Okay.
Tabas is not able to hear anything.
Yeah, I'm able to hear now.
Okay, Tabas, actually, I was introducing you. Now you can enter directly into the talk. Tabas, you can start presenting.
Shall I start now?
Sure.
Just please confirm whether you are able to see my screen.
Yes, not now, but we are able to see you.
Okay, then I think I have to.
Could you please see present now? On the right side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is coming.
Yeah. Is it coming now?
It's just coming. It's just coming.
Okay.
Okay. I think there needs to be some change. Like when you share screen, select a window and select your presentation. Now it's just your screen is shared.
Yeah.
You just press the present button and the whole screen, the entire screen. Press that entire screen, then press share.
One moment. Yeah, present now.
Present now.
Yeah.
A picture comes of your entire screen.
Your entire screen.
Entire screen. Then share.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I did.
Yes, it's coming now, but only.
Good afternoon, Sajin sir. How are you?
Hi, Karen. Going good. Actually, there is a small delay with the Tabas presentation. Actually, Zoom is not permitted in ISRO. So we are trying to stream Google Meet to YouTube and from YouTube to Zoom.
Okay.
And that's the delay. We will wait for 10 more minutes. If it is not working, we have to postpone or shift to next schedule for
Okay, I'll just I'll hold the line until you're ready then. Thank you.
Okay.
Sajin, I have shared the screen now.
Okay.
You are getting my screen? Anything on that?
No.
My title slide?
No.
Okay, not yet. Okay.
There is a window present now.
Yeah.
You press that present now.
Yeah.
It's coming now.
But
again, it's gone.
Now it's okay?
No.
Okay, could you please open your PPT and start presenting? It may come here.
Yeah, that's what my PPT I have opened. And my first slide is displayed on my screen, which I'm sharing my window, not screen. Now I have shared my window, which is a PPT window.
But it's not coming here, sir.
Okay.
Could you try screen sharing?
Is this coming now?
No.
Okay.
If you click it, a small window comes.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
In that one, the center part, one figure will.
Yes, I'm here, Sajin. Can you hear me?
Hi, Karen. You are able to hear me now?
Yes, I am. I can hear you.
Actually, there is a small technical snag with Tabas presentation. That's why. So, but we will be starting your presentation at 4:20 in the Indian time.
That's in 10 minutes here, I believe, huh?
Yes, 10 minutes more. Tabas, can we shift your talk to the third slot that is at 5:10 so that you can, meanwhile, you can.
Yeah, that's okay. 5:10 is okay. Otherwise, okay. After that, also, I'm not sure. What is the last possible time?
Last, what will be your option?
I mean, anything after 7 o'clock?
6:50? 6:50? We will have 50? Yes. That is the time actually the last talk ends, and we will have an half an hour discussion with you, with your presentation. Okay, then 6:50 is okay. Okay. And now I will go to Karen. Karen, we can prepone your talk by 10 minutes before?
I'm sorry, would you like me to start now?
Yes, by 4:10 now.
Okay,
if you're
that
ready.
means,
If
that
you're
means
ready.
now, yeah?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, let me share my screen. The host I'm not allowed to show, can you enable share screen sharing, please?
Asha, can you stop YouTube and come back to Zoom and give the co-host to Karen?
Yeah, could you please try now? It should be all right. Okay. Karen, could you please try it now?
Yes, I have. Let's see.
Yes, before that, Karen, I would like to introduce you to the audience. Actually, Karen is also known to me from 2018, when the 2018 Kerala flood occurred. She is a senior advisor in disaster risk reduction with the United Nations Environment Program at Geneva. Though she is basically from US, she is now settled in Geneva, where the headquarters of UNEP is there. Actually, Karen has a vast experience with the ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction. And she have developed a MOOC, which we call Massive Open Online Course on Disasters and Ecosystem Resilience in a Changing Climate. She is parallelly an associate researcher at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland, and she published tremendously, especially on the Nepal earthquake. She holds the PhD in environmental science from University of Lausanne and a master's in international development and forest ecology. I think with this introduction, I invite Karen to deliver your talk.
Fantastic. Can you remind me how much time I have, Sajin, please?
You have 50 minutes, 52 minutes to 1 hour. The last 10 minutes, you can hold it for discussion.
Okay, then I should have enough time to go through. I have 37 slides, which shouldn't take that long, so I'll go ahead. Well, thank you very much for this invitation. Dr. Sajin, it's very nice to have been collaborating with you. We were working on one paper together. I'm not sure where that paper is now, but maybe we can discuss later. What I would like to do is give you an overview of some of my experience in working in this field, first as a researcher, and then having moved from the University of Lausanne to the United Nations Environment Program. So I'll share with you some of the research that we have been conducting over the last decade on this topic, and some of the work that we're doing with UNEP. So my alternative title is actually "Are Globes to Blame for Landslides, and What Can We Do About It?" It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'll explain in a few minutes why I'm talking about goats in the context of landslides. So here's my outline, very simple. Why are ecosystems important for reducing impacts from geohazards? What is UNEP doing about it, the United Nations Environment Program? What can you do, and how can you get involved? So first, I like to start a lot of my talks with this image. It gives a very strong image, I believe, of some of the challenges we're facing and some of the linkages between ecosystems and how ecosystems may reduce the impact of certain types of hazard events and geohazards. This is a photo from the border between Haiti and Dominican Republic. And you can see that Dominican Republic on your right still has some greenery left, and Haiti has been completely deforested for various reasons in the past. Okay, somebody didn't mute their mic. Okay, I'll keep going. And what we saw is in 2004, when a tropical storm hit the island where both of these countries are situated in the same way, we had over 6,000 casualties in Haiti and only 18 casualties in the Dominican Republic. And those people were actually living on the border with Haiti. We have an example, which actually comes from one of my colleagues, Professor McAdoo. He spoke yesterday during your symposium. We have a situation in Sri Lanka when the Indian Ocean tsunami hit a hotel, Yellow Safari Resort. 27 people passed away, unfortunately. And this hotel could have been saved because what they had done is they cut down the sand dunes that used to be naturally on this coastline. They cut them down for better ocean views. I visited this area last year, and I found something similar happened to another ranger station where sand dunes had been cut down in this area, and the ranger station was completely demolished. Only the foundation remained. However, I found an interesting example of another ranger station, which was nicely nestled behind these sand dunes that had not been destroyed, that were protected for an endangered species of turtles. And that ranger station was luckily saved, and there were no casualties. Here I come to the goats. I started my PhD work actually in Kashmir in Pakistan, where we went to study the earthquake, the Muzaffarabad, the Kashmir earthquake in 2004. So I was there in the field in 2006 and 2007, and we conducted a study where we looked at some of the linkages between land use and landslides. And in this case, of course, the landslides you see are obviously earthquake-induced landslides. And what we found was, in many cases, we actually studied the epicenter of the earthquake in 2006. We profiled 100 landslides. We found that 84% of the landslides could be found on grazing land, where the goats had completely eaten everything down to the very roots. We found that the vegetation was very highly degraded due to free-range goat herds. And the two slopes had similar geology and slope gradient that we studied, but there was a difference in private ownership versus state regulated. And this has been published. This is actually my first publication in 2011. So very clear that there's a link between how we manage our slopes and whether or not we allow the goats to graze freely. The next case that I studied was with one of my master's students when I was at the University of Lausanne. She did a study over time of Nepal community forestry in an area using aerial photos and some satellite imagery from 1979 to 2009. And we studied an area that had been converted to community forestry, which started out highly degraded. But over the years, as goat management became very strict and goats were no longer allowed to graze freely, we found a much better vegetation coverage in these 30 years and much lower incidence of shallow landslides. There, we go back to my initial question, do goats cause landslides? Well, yes, in a way, but it really depends on how we manage our land and how we manage our grazing animals, right? Furthermore, in Nepal, the next research topic I looked at in more detail were roads and how roads impact landslides. And we didn't have a lot of data on the human factor of road construction and the number of landslides caused in Nepal. There had only been a study back in 1977, I believe, by Peter Laban. So we set out with my colleagues, again, Brian McAdoo, who presented yesterday, also Basantam Adhikari and Sanjay Devkota, other colleagues who worked on this article. The main message I want to get across, without going into detail, you can find more information and read the paper, is that 40% of monsoon-induced landslides have some association with roads, okay? The rest of the paper also looked at earthquake-triggered landslides, which had a lower incident, lower association with roads, but especially related to monsoon-triggered landslides. So there again, how we manage our land and our landscape really can impact the type of geohazards that we might find in our landscapes. This is what it looked like in the ground, and we work with my colleague Sanjay Devkota to implement remedies. How could we remedy this? So we worked on something called Ecosafe Roads, which looked at working with communities in establishing simple bioengineering, soil bioengineering methods, which included simple drainage together with planting local species. This one is amriso, or a small bamboo grass. This is what it looked like 6 months after we started working in that area. In another area, again, you can see the small drainage that we put in. Working with local communities, we actually, my colleague Devkota, he studied various plant species to look at their root structure and see which are those plants that are better capable of holding the soil together. This is what the same area looks like 6 months after, and this is after 2 years. Some of that work he has published and is almost close to obtaining his PhD. Finally, I'd like to just really quickly mention a comprehensive review of all of the literature, at least English literature, between 2000 and 2019 on the topic of ecosystems for disaster risk reduction. So we looked at with 27 other authors around the world, and this is something that is under review right now in Nature Sustainability. So I'm not able to show you the latest graphs. This is an older graph, but we're looking at various topics. We're looking at how forests and vegetation may mitigate various types of erosion and landslides and avalanches. We looked at also for, I would say, rivers and wetlands mainly, for coastal systems, in agriculture related to erosion, urban and gray infrastructure, and drylands and drought. And this is a general category. The other one was also related to forest fires. We created a map where we looked at where most of the papers were published around the world and the various topics. So hopefully this paper will be coming out in upcoming weeks, and I'll be able to share that with your group if there's interest. So some of the various hazards that we have been studying in terms of their how they may be mitigated by various types of ecosystems. I'm not going to read them all out. You can see them here. But what we've also, it's important to note, is not only do many of these ecosystems provide the direct benefit of protection or buffering and reducing some of the energy from these hazard events, but they provide co-benefits. So they can also reduce vulnerability of populations, which, as you know, is also an important part of the risk equation. So for example, I'll give you more examples here now for some types of geohazards. For example, coastal storm surges, some types of tsunamis, but not all. There have been quite a few studies looking at mangroves and their effectiveness in reducing some of these coastal hazards. According to the literature, there is still quite some question about the level of impact that mangroves can have, especially for large tsunamis, of course, but they can certainly have an impact when it comes to reducing coastal erosion and certain types of storm surges, not to mention the co-benefits brought by mangroves, which are often discounted and not always considered. Looking at flooding in riverways, we also studied this in our global literature review. This is one area which is a bit tricky actually for the scientists, and it really depends on the level, the scale at which we study the impact of vegetation on reducing flooding in riverways. So for example, at the very large river basin scale, it will be difficult to say outright that vegetation will actually reduce certain type of flood. But at a smaller catchment scale, it can certainly be said that having vegetation cover on hillsides and maintaining wetlands to absorb excess rainwater can certainly help in reducing the occurrence of flooding. However, what should also be mentioned for flooding is that oftentimes one of the main issues is exposure. Where do people live? Where do people put their houses? Do they decide to live right on the river? That'll certainly increase their risk of being flooded. We also took a look at drylands and drought management. which in many cases needs to be accompanied by some type of hybrid solution where vegetation does not always grow naturally in certain drylands areas, and some type of more artificial water management is required, such as small dams, to create the conditions for better vegetation cover, and also for enabling, for reducing the incidence of flash floods, which is one of the main issues related to drylands and water in dry areas. Fire and forest management. Obviously, the way that we manage our forests will have an incidence on fire incidents. And this is another thing that has been very much studied and is part of our article as well, and having a very high, I would say, level of association. And finally, getting back to the one area that had the strongest, I would say, association between ecosystems and various types of geohazards was definitely looking at shallow landslides. I gave the example previously from where I started my career in this field, from looking at earthquake-triggered landslides in Kashmir, and the fact that that there was hardly any vegetation really increased the occurrence and the number of shallow landslides. In terms of rainfall-triggered landslides, we have an example here that was published in our 2013 book by Thomas Glade and Papatoma, that looked at rainfall-triggered landslides in New Zealand and how grazing, and especially for sheep, led to the occurrence of very high occurrence of shallow landslides. The same has been studied a lot in the Alps, where protection forests are a very strong part of the Swiss protection management plan for risks. One of our colleagues, Luc Doran, is in the lead in this in Switzerland and also in France, where he has also studied, I should have added rockfall to this slide actually, avalanches, rockfall. He studied rockfall and how certain type of tree, when trees are managed in a way to maintain high biodiversity, different types of tree stands with different ages, so that you don't have all young trees and not only old trees. So this is the way that the forests are managed in Switzerland and France to maximize the natural protection cover from forests. And again, the co-benefits of having forests versus these engineering structures is something that the Swiss value very much, and they promote as part of their tourism, of course, and they feel safer and better when they have forests to protect them. Of course, in many cases, and we may be able to see from this photo, we need hybrid solutions where we may put up these steel barriers to keep the snow in place where trees do not grow. So in many cases, it is necessary to combine the two, as long as the steel barriers do not create a major impediment for further tree growth. So some examples of the work that we are doing in this field to promote this work. Well, first of all, a lot of the work has been just gathering the evidence, because when we started in this field 10 years ago, we did not have a huge amount of evidence. And over the years, we've been thinking more about conceptual frameworks to understand the various methods and approaches. And I'll give you the website where you can go for more information. You'll probably hear this term more and more, nature-based solutions for disaster risk reduction, for climate change adaptation, but ultimately our goal is sustainable development. So we're trying to combine reducing the impacts of various types of geohazards through various approaches that also bring livelihoods benefits, because otherwise we find that they're not sustainable. So some of the main goals of the work we're doing is meeting the needs of people, taking care of the planet for the long term, and dealing with climate change. So we're trying to get, trying to achieve multiple goals by trying to get governments to invest more in ecosystems and various hybrid approaches for reaching the same goal, but with even better results. So some of the ways we're doing this is through urban greening. is by promoting green infrastructure. Blue infrastructure. Blue infrastructure means wetlands and estuaries, which I've shown in the last couple slides. Landscape restoration, wetland restoration, sustainable land and integrated fire management, climate smart agriculture and agroforestry, integrated water resource management, integrated coastal zone management, and protected areas. I hope I didn't go through these too fast. I will pause upon at least integrated water resource management in an upcoming slide to explain a little bit more what we mean by that. Integrated coastal zone management, what that implies is looking at the whole coast as an integrated system. So looking at the where the water comes from the upper part of a watershed, for example, and where some of the main factors for erosion are emanating from. So it's looking at both watersheds and coasts as complex systems that need to be dealt with as complex systems, not small segments at a time. So let me give you a few examples in the upcoming slides. One of the areas where we are working is in Kerala. I thought I would start with this slide. So what we are doing in a concrete way is that we are working to see how we can bring our project work to a much greater scale than what we have been doing in the past. So we are looking at how we can integrate what we call ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction. So if I go back to my conceptual framework, what I mean by ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction is how ecosystems can reduce the impact of disaster risk through various means that I have highlighted here. So what we're doing is we're working together with the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guaranteed Scheme, which is one of the largest development programs in India, from what I understand. And in Kerala, what I have learned is that around 2.6 million, especially women, are working under the scheme and receiving payment for about 100 days of paid work. And what they're doing, I was fortunate to travel to Kerala last year. I was able to see that they're doing a lot of riverbed restoration. They're doing some, sometimes also cleaning out ditches, waste management. But what we've done is we've set up a training course with the Kerala Institute for Local Administration. This is online training that is being given to local elected representatives, to some of the teammates. This means some of the local workers, and also the local government engineers on various topics. So first of all, the Ecosafe Roads. We brought some of our learning and findings from Nepal to Kerala and to apply that work there as well. Riverbed restoration, which is something that they were already taking, but not necessarily in a very systematic or technical way. Quarry restoration. I understand there are thousands of quarries in Kerala that have been abandoned, and that can be sometimes trigger further landslides and need to be addressed. Coastal restoration is something we mentioned before. This is something that wasn't necessarily undertaken to a large extent through this MNREGS scheme, the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Scheme, but hopefully will be more taken up. Pond conservation. Ponds are something that are traditionally done in Kerala, as most of you probably listening from Kerala know and can teach me more about, as a way to conserve water for livestock in the dry season, but also can be a good place to store water to reduce flooding as well. Urban flood mitigation also. Kerala is very unique in having its own program called the Ayankali Rural Employment Scheme, which helps to look at urban flood mitigation through making sure that water can be retained in the upper catchment before it reaches an urban area. And finally, forest fire mitigation. So this is some of the work that we're doing in Kerala, and we're hoping to bring this work also to the national level and try to get some of these training materials and guidelines implemented by other states in India as well. So we're hoping to have a much bigger impact in the state that way. I'll give you another example from your region, this time from Indonesia, where we're working on what we call integrated water resource management, which is what I had mentioned previously. Also sustainable land and integrated fire management. Now, as you know, certain parts of Indonesia, and perhaps there are some participants from Indonesia joining the call. Indonesia, you know probably that peatlands is a big, and peatlands management is a big issue in Indonesia, especially when the country goes through the dry season and there are many many peatlands fires that are very damaging not only to the local ecosystem, but to us all globally, as these peatlands are very well known to absorb CO2, and these peatlands fires release a lot of methane. Indonesia also is very close to some major urban areas in the neighborhood. Singapore, for example, suffers a lot from the peatlands fires in Indonesia. So we are working there with Wetlands International on a peatlands restoration livelihoods diversification project where biorights has been included in the project. Biorights are grants that are given to small farmers to help them to diversify their lands, to help out with rewetting, revegetation, and refraining from unsustainable practices. So to allow the peatlands to become wet again, which means that they are less of a risk for forest fires, and also to revegetate them so that these small farmers are no longer as dependent only on palm oil, to give them other sources of income. So this is what we're putting together as a model for integrated water resource management, as well as for fire management. We're also working at the global level, especially with the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, where our group was very active in advocating for ecosystem-based approaches for mitigating disaster risk globally, and we were quite successful in including quite a lot of language in the Sendai framework for this. Now the question is how the governments will actually then implement what is in the framework. That's the next question. So we're also working in creating technical guidelines. I shouldn't put it on the screen, but we have a new technical guideline called Words into Action, which we developed together with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. And this Words into Action is on the topic of how ecosystems can reduce disaster risk. And they are now open for public comment. So I can provide you some more information on that during our discussion part of this session. We're also working with the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, helping them to take a look at how there are voluntary guidelines, for example, now for governments, and how they can include ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction and adaptation into their national adaptation plans. So we're working with other UNEP colleagues on making sure that these guidelines are brought to the attention of governments. We just finished a policy brief for member states, members of the Convention on Biological Diversity. This is actually a binding convention, which was guided by the IG targets. These targets on biodiversity have now expired and are being renegotiated this year. And we have developed a brief to help member states think about some targets that can also include disaster risk, so that they look at how Diverse ecosystems will be more robust and will protect populations and will offer more buffer than monoculture, for example. The Ramsar Convention on Wetlands passed a decision on wetlands in 2014, I believe, which really requests signatories to take a look at protecting wetlands to make sure that they act as buffers for flooding. They act as areas where excess rainwater can flow to naturally without flooding areas, urban areas nearby, for example. Getting close to the end here. So the United Nations Convention on to Combat Desertification is very important that we're working with for reducing drylands. Hazards, for example, the Great Green Wall of the Sahel and Sahara is something that we will probably start to work with. Finally, UNESCO. I haven't talked so much about protected areas, but you may think about some protected areas where you live and the importance of having large buffers of natural areas to also help buffer from certain types of hazard events. There have been studies that looked at the Sundarbans, mangrove protected areas in Bangladesh as actually a good buffer for some of the cyclones that have come through in recent years. And also, did you know that a lot of the cities in the world, 20 of the largest cities in the world actually draw their drinking water from nearby protected areas? So what can you do? I'm getting to the last part of my talk here. I'm a bit ahead of time, but that's okay. We'll have more time for discussion. There are plenty of opportunities, and this is really a growing and exciting field for those of you working in geohazards, whether you're scientists, students, or decision makers. So this is really one of the most, I would say, most growing fields in disaster risk reduction now today. We are working together with 27 other partners from around the world. You'll recognize a lot of these logos. We've got the famous panda here, WWF. IUCN, Wetlands International, but we're also now joined by humanitarian organizations such as IFRC, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, Mercy Corps, and also Save the Children. So we're looking more and more at this issue of disaster risk reduction in a much more holistic way. Not only do we want to we don't want to have to just clean up after a disaster has struck a community. We want to see really how we can prevent that from happening. And we like to see also how we can make sure that our communities stay healthy and have decent food sources through ecosystems, right? So we're working with this group, PEDR, the Partnership for Environment and Disaster Risk Reduction, since 2008. So we're over a decade old now. Our three areas of work are advancing science and knowledge. That is our foundation. That's how we started out, was trying to figure out whether mangroves really did protect coastal communities or not. And you've seen that we've grown in our sophistication and in bridging science and policy. So secondly, we do a lot of capacity building. We have developed courses. I'll get to that in a minute. Some online courses that you might be interested in. And finally, policy advocacy and mainstreaming. So now that we have much more robust science behind us, we're able to go out and help governments figure out how they may carry this forward. It doesn't mean that we have all the answers. We definitely need a lot more help in researching the role of ecosystems in disaster risk reductions. You'll see that we've published a number of policy briefs. We have 2 scientific books out there, The Role of Ecosystems in Disaster Risk Reduction, published in 2013, highly peer-reviewed, and a second book in 2016, I believe, which is even, it's even a larger book. And we gathered a lot of peer-reviewed articles from colleagues around the world looking at various topics. So hopefully our paper will be coming out in Nature Sustainability, which really does a good job, I believe, at taking a look at the global literature at least the English speaking literature on this topic. However, there's still a lot of question marks, and there's still a need for scientists to work with us and work with ecologists actually on this topic. We don't have all the answers. It's also very difficult actually for us to come up with solid guidelines that are global. I mean, mangroves will be different. They will act somewhat differently in Jamaica versus Indonesia. So what has been difficult is to come up with a global standard, like performance indicators. For example, how wide does a mangrove belt need to be to protect us against which type of storm surge is difficult. We do have some guidelines for vegetation on steep slopes, thanks to the Swiss and French researchers. That's probably one of the best studied topics. But there's a lot more room for working there. Another an area for more science is looking at hybrid solutions. Think about a coastline where you may have an area that's protected with concrete seawall. If any of you are scientists working on coastal dynamics, you know that any gray structure on a coastline in a very dynamic system is going to create more erosion further downstream along the coast. So more research is really needed to see how to combine gray and green infrastructure where needed. So I'm going to close off by saying, please, if you're interested in more information, you'll be able to find more at our website, petter.org. We have done quite a lot of national trainings. We have a graduate level course, which is being taught now by over 100 universities around the world. And you can go to our website and find maps of partners from your region. We have 5 different regional hubs now and 5 maps up there with partners who are working on this topic around the world. And I'm very happy to say that we already had a massive open online course, which we offered in 2015. We had almost 20,000 participants. And we're now working on our second course, which is called Nature-Based Solutions for Disaster and Climate Resilience, which is a free online course. And with your permission, and if technology will permit, I'd like to play the promo video. So let's see if this works. I'm going to click on the YouTube link and try to play that for you. Oh, let me stop it now. Sorry. Let me go to the next. All right. So here's my final slide, and I'm sure that the symposium organizers will share my slides with you so that you can find more information and how to reach us on social media. We have a very large Facebook group, 15,000 people that was created by actually a participant after our last MOOC. And I post a lot of things there that you can find us. It's called Disasters and Ecosystems. I'm not sure if it's listed here. But in any case, I'll stop here, and I'm well within time, right, Dr. Sajin? So that way there's more time for discussion and any questions. Exactly. I'll stop sharing the slides, right?
Yes, exactly. You stick on to the time. And any questions, please either you can ask or you can put it in the chat box. We have 10 more minutes.
In the meantime, perhaps I can ask the participants a question. I'll be a little bit provocative. Do you think that ecosystems can prevent all types of geohazards? And can you think of examples where they cannot and where vegetation might make it worse, actually? Here, I'm being a bit provocative. Let's see if anybody responds to that in the chat or you raise your hand. I don't know if they can raise their hand in this platform.
So meanwhile, can you just give the audience a picture about who are eligible for participating in the MOOC online free course that you are offering from January?
It is open to everyone. It is really open to everyone. And we're also hoping to get more young people to join, university students. Our last MOOC was very faithful to our course, which was it was 20 chapters long. It was a lot more academic, but we still have that course on our website for those of you who want to learn more and read our source book. But this one is going to be a little bit more, it's going to be broader. It's going to have a different style to it. It's going to be more like a style like a master class rather than a lecture. And try to get more people involved. Yeah, we want to also get business owners to get interested in this because the private sector has a big role to play in making geohazards worse and sometimes in reducing them if they do a good job. We want to get more policymakers to take our course. So we're going to make it very attractive, fun, entertaining, and easy to take. It's going to be relatively short. And we've lined up quite a few interviews with world leaders, exclusive interviews with world leaders, and with youth groups from around the world who have shared with us their ideas and their aspirations. So yeah, please take a look, register, tell a friend, and do find us on social media as well.
So the questions are not there. MOOC is awesome. Just opted for spatial data science by Abel Shaji. They are saying about the advantages of MOOC. And meanwhile, I have one more question. You have traveled to different parts of the globe, especially the developing countries. So how would you rate the Kudumbasri project, which is there in the Kerala, because the government and all we are consider that as the flagship program of the government. So how do you compare this Kudumbasri with any other similar or things in the other developing countries?
When you say Kumbhrasi, you mean the Mangroves, right? The Mahatma Gandhi?
Yes, exactly.
Employment, okay. Well, there are other poverty alleviation schemes in other countries, such as the Philippines. But I've been very impressed by how Kerala has especially employed females. I mean, I think Kerala is also quite different from the rest of India that way. And I'm not just saying that because I want to make you happy, but I know that for a fact. Kerala is also quite different in that regard, that it really takes, I think, the presence of women and women and capacity building very seriously. The Mangroves program is actually very impressive in the fact that it tries to be take into consideration also ecosystem restoration. So I haven't really seen that to the same extent in other countries, which is why we chose to work with this program. Because we felt that we could have a big impact in looking at how ecosystems can reduce some of the occurrences of various disaster events. We've also been working on flood risk modeling in Kerala, actually, which is something that is just very new, just finished. So I haven't been able to present on it yet, but it's something that is being modeled by looking at some of the climate change projections. So we're working together with KSDMA, the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority, and we'll be handing over the results to them so that they can take a look at which areas might be likely to be more flooded in upcoming years in Kerala. to help the government to take further measures on that. So that one doesn't necessarily have an ecosystem component, although some of our other work on our website, if you go to petter.org, is related to mapping out how ecosystems can reduce disaster risk. So this one takes a spatial data dimension to it. So if you go to our website and you dig around a little bit, you can take a look at petter.org and you look for something called opportunity mapping. So that's something else I would encourage those of you online to take a look at. So yeah, I don't know if there are any other questions.
You have one question in the chat box.
How can we be part of environmental programs of the United Nations? Oh, what is the eligibility criteria? Well, I'm not sure what you mean by being part of. I mean, you can always apply for job postings, which are often on our website. But you can take a look at our activities and take our MOOC, for example. That's one way to learn more about it. Sometimes we're looking for interns. So what you can do is take a look at our website. You can sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is listed on our website. And this Petter network is something that we host at our organization. So we often will have interns. It's been a little bit more difficult with COVID, how we have interns now. Yeah, so I would say take our course, take a look at some of our job openings, which come out now and then. They can be very selective and competitive, but I'm sure if you're working hard and getting some experience in Kerala, that's one day you might be able to, apply for the jobs and learn more about our work. That's probably the best answer I can give. Okay, somebody already registered. That's nice. Thank you for registering. Tell your friends. And we would like to really make sure that the universities know about our MOOC and maybe can help us also in share the information in upcoming newsletters. So I was actually going to go back to Dr. Sajin and ask him if he can help us in forwarding the information in our MOOC in their newsletter.
Okay, fine, sure. So any other questions? So in the 2018 flood, what could, because your organization is the one organization which have worked tremendously on this one, what could be the major factor which have facilitated the flood other than the anomalous rainfall?
Well, I'm not exactly an expert for Kerala, Sajin, and I'd rather not give a major statement on that. What I have read is there were some issues with the dam management. I mean, from my perspective, also depending on how uplands areas are managed in terms of deforestation, that can also play a role to make sure that the water stays in the upper areas. Also, I mean, of course, the way you are a densely populated state, where people live also plays a role, right? So if you're living right on a canal that is often flooded, well, you're most likely to be affected than if you live a little bit further away. I know that you have strict building codes in Kerala. I guess the question is whether they're always being followed. Is the buffer zone from the waterfront being followed? From when I came to visit, I understood not always strictly. So those are some of the factors. One needs to take a multidisciplinary look at the flooding. But even in some cases when it's just such extreme rainfall events, what to do, right? I mean, I think this was not predicted, but hopefully now, and apparently you've had 3 times in a row the flooding. So of course it's a good time for you all to think very hard about, well, how can water be more retained in the upper watersheds? Because you usually cannot deal with flooding once it already hits the city. It's looking at the whole system, looking at the entire watershed and how some of the heavy rainfall might be kept in areas that pose less risk to a population, right? So some areas such as wetlands that may have been drained out. Well, maybe they should be reinvigorated. They should be restored, right? Because they can maintain water in a way that's not dangerous. That's one thing, right? So trying to get the water to absorb in a safe way. Secondly is where people living. So again, looking at the land use and looking at making sure that those building codes are respected, so that reduces the exposure side of the risk equation. So those are some of the thoughts. I know that the Dutch government also came to visit Kerala. They were looking at I think it's the Alaputsa area, right, which is the lowland area, and trying to help them think through a room for river scheme. So room for river scheme in the Netherlands really looks at how we can allow water to flow in a natural way and flood those some areas on a periodic basis, but where it doesn't cause a big problem. So that's what they did in the Netherlands. They removed some people's houses close to the river. And they said this farm area is going to have to be flooded when it gets, there's a lot of rainfall, because otherwise there's flooding will go down to the town further down. So it's making some decisions about trade-offs, right? And making those in a way where you do that in advance. You have a big plan and you decide in advance, okay, this area is going to have to be flooded, but move away from that area so you don't get hurt. So that we protect other areas that we really don't want to be flooded, right? So we save some temples and we save some areas that we really don't want to be flooded, where a lot of people live. So it's taking a systems approach.
Dr. Sajin, I have some questions. May I ask?
Sure. Since no one is asking, I was keeping her engaged.
Yeah, all right, that's good. Thank you very much for wonderful talk. It was truly interesting. So I had this point in my mind.
Before that, Lindo, I will, Karen, actually Lindo, though I am handling this session, the entire that colloquium is handled by Linto Alapad. He is an assistant professor in Christ College, situated in the north of Kerala, called Iringalakoda. So he's the total organizing secretary for this colloquium.
Thank you, Sajin, Dr. Sajin, for such a nice introduction. Yeah, so my point was like, the green ecosystem has, or any like peatlands or any these greeneries, we have a lot of ecosystem services that offers to the environment or to the society. So considering that ecosystem service value of these areas, why don't we, or in a global move, that people get tax benefit for that? So for example, if I'm maintaining some amount of greenery in an area, like this much number of trees and some land area as wetlands, would I get, if I am eligible for some kind of tax benefit, considering the ecosystem services that I offer in my protection, in my protected land area? So that way, will we be able to like promote more of these natural based services? Like, we tend to promote it or protect it more, so that the nature will stay green for longer term. So why don't we think like that? Because see, now all these tax are given by all parties, all of the areas, by all the people in the same way. But for example, for urban area, they may earn more in that area, but rural area, they get less. But they are always protecting the natural ecosystems. So if those who are doing that, they should get some kind of benefit out of it. So why don't we think on a global perspective, such a initiative? Is it possible? I don't know if there is any like limitations on that.
Yeah, so I think it's Dr. Linto. Thank you. That's an excellent question. And I think you can write a letter to the your chief minister of Kerala proposing it. No, I'm serious. There is something called payment for ecosystem services. Okay. So payment for ecosystem services is something that has been tried. It's not necessarily done through taxes. It's often done, it could be done through taxes, but for example, where it seems to work the best is when we have, for example, a water company, right? Like Evian water is very well known around the world, right? In France, it's actually an hour away from my house, where actually Evian, they pay those people living in the watershed, especially those farmers, not to use pesticides. Okay. So it's a kind of, and because they directly benefit from having clean water, because if the water that comes for the drinking water is somewhat polluted, they have to clean it. They're going to have a cost. So they'd rather pay those farmers in the watershed not to pollute, right? So in a way, but you're right. So the tax would be then our tax credit, right? So it would be basically, if you're protecting your area, you have a nice water conservation pond that could get flooded, you're offering that as a service to the public good. So it should be a tax credit. I agree. So it is, but just if you want to pursue this further, you can look into something called payments for ecosystem services, because that's what it comes down to. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these payment schemes have unfortunately not worked out. In some cases, I haven't seen tax credits before. That's a great idea. They haven't always worked out because there's not always a very clear supplier and a buyer. Okay, so for the case of the Evian water, it worked well because there the buyer is very clearly the water company. But for example, for disaster risk reduction, I know this was tried, for example, in Nepal, where the hotel association in Pokhara, which is a very famous tourist area, Pokhara Lake, is being gradually filled up by sediment. So the hotel association tried to pay the farmers in the watershed not to do agriculture in a way where there's sediment going down into the lake. It didn't work out, unfortunately, because there were too many people involved and it was not clear who would pay whom and whether there would be good results. So it's a bit controversial, the payment for ecosystem services, but it's definitely worth looking into. And I thank you for your question.
Yeah, one more suggestion regarding the MOOC I have. Actually, like we have this compulsory audit course that is introduced to the UG students, undergraduate students. So if you kind of promote your MOOC for the students, that is in the first semester they are supposed to take one course in a non-credit course in environmental science. So this would be a great effort to push this to them. Probably we can have like a small networking institutes all around the country or state, so they can do it on behalf of you, or like you direct them to do it, so that it will reach to the grassroots level much easier or effectively. Just a suggestion. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. That sounds great. Thank you for that suggestion. I see there's one more question. Is there time, Dr. Sajin, sir, for one more question in the chat?
Sure. You can answer it.
Okay. I'm wondering what coastal restoration measures would you suggest for erosion? So coastal vegetation, where it would naturally grow. The mangroves is an interesting topic because it was largely promoted after the Indian Ocean tsunami, as many of you may know. Unfortunately, 9 out of 10 mangroves restoration projects failed in Sri Lanka, for example, because mangroves were not always planted in the right places. They don't grow in every place. They don't grow in areas where there's fast moving water. They only grow in areas where they can be protected, really. But even in the areas like lagoons where they do tend to grow, they are still very useful for protecting areas from erosion. But it needs to be done in a way that's quite scientific, and it needs to be done together with those ecologists that know about where to plant mangroves. I just got off a call with Ericsson, the phone company that is now in the, doing a lot of environmental monitoring work. They tried to do a mangrove restoration in the Philippines, and it largely failed because they tried to plant in areas where it shouldn't be growing. So they set up these really high-tech monitoring systems, but they didn't talk to the local community about, have they grown here before? Can they grow here? So they're getting smarter now about where they will be doing their reforestation projects. So looking at coastal vegetation where appropriate, and otherwise really sand dune protection and nourishment is very important. And what's tricky on the coastline is, like I said, when you have very dynamic systems where you have tides, where you put in an engineering structure, it will create more erosion, as many of you probably know. So you have to be very careful. You may want to protect one hotel with a groin or a seawall, but you're probably creating more erosion further down the coast. So that's where you have to take a systems approach and seeing all the different options that are possible and working together with ecologists or coastal engineers who really understand the coastal dynamics.
One more question.
The dams in Kerala are at threat in every flood times. What can we do? Major steps for avoiding. So is the question, what are the steps for avoiding the threats to the dams? Is that your reading of it too, Dr. Sajin? How can we avoid the threat to the dams?
Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Well, again, I'm not a Kerala specialist, but I do know that dams can be threatened when there's a lot of sediment that goes into dams. And also, dam management is not something that I'm a specialist in, but I understand that it's very important that one keeps the reservoirs should be emptied out now and then, but you have to take a look at the source. Where are the sediments coming from? And there again, in Nepal, we did studies where we were able to calculate the amount of sediments that were coming into waterways due to illegal road building, at least in Nepal. I don't know how it works in Kerala. But these small roads built by communities, they increase the amount of sediment to the Pokhara Lake, which is what we studied, by a huge amount. So taking a look at the causes of some of these issues, what are the root causes? And I'm really talking about root causes, because when we remove our roots, we make roads, we allow the goats to graze, and we allow the soil to wash down into our waterways. That is one of the root causes. Secondly, how we manage the dams is a different issue for engineers that I'm less familiar with. So that's how I would answer that. I see there's one more question coming, but I don't know, Dr. Sajin, you should cut me off when we're done.
No, you can do it, but you just have a look whether that is right or wrong, whether it is in your purview or not.
Okay, coal corridor. I don't know about this topic, coal corridor. I mean, obviously you have to be careful with coal mining, but I cannot respond to that question so much. Cloudbursts and landslides. Well, okay. I mean, I studied this also in Nepal, where we studied some of the landslides that took place after a cloudburst in Nepal, where there were unfortunately quite a few casualties. I think we had 300 millimeters of rain in something like 2 hours. And landslides occurred even in areas where there were some vegetation, even when there were forests. But those areas that even had landslides where there were forests, we found that those areas that had more biodiverse forests withstood even the cloudbursts in a better way. But as soon as there was any road or any human intervention, these forests, even if they were quite dense, became very fragile actually and could not withstand the cloudburst. So when I was being a little bit devil's advocate a couple minutes ago by saying, do you have any examples where trees can actually make it worse? In some cases where we have old trees that are very heavy on slopes with shallow soils, they could actually trigger a landslide. Okay, so I wanted to give, I didn't see anybody actually taking me up on my challenge, but I just want to mention that forests can actually create damage as well when they're not properly managed. So this is what the Swiss have really been studying. That would be my answer to the question on the cloudburst and landslide.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen, for your talk for 1 hour. You have entertained us more than 1 hour. Thank you very much. I do not know how to express my happiness for joining part of this one. Of course, it was nice to hear to you about the ecosystem related things. Thank you very much, Karen.
All right, thank you. And everybody, please stay safe and prepare properly for the next flooding event. I hope it will not be as strong next time. Every time we learn from our events, and we must prepare the next round so that they become less of a problem to your people, yeah? So thank you, and stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, see you. So actually, I have to say a big sorry for two things. For the inconvenience caused during the first talk. He will be joining, Dr. Thabas will be joining at 6:50. We will restrict to half an hour talk. I request everyone to be attend that talk also, because it is from the Indian perspective, the organization which we gives higher priority, ISRO, how they play a good role in geohazards. That will be interesting to watch. Actually, the second apology is yesterday I have already took an anticipatory bail regarding the third talk, which is supposed to be talked by Vrindanath from UNDP. Actually, she's not well. She is having dengue fever and she couldn't present it. So she asked an excuse. So I was looking for an alternate person, but in the last moment, it will not be wise to call any other person. So I thought, and based on a few requests yesterday through Messenger and WhatsApp, that I myself to deliver a talk. So I decided to give a small lecture on 2018 floods. So with your kind permission, Linto, can I proceed?
Yes, sir, sure, sure. Do we have to introduce you in this aspect? I think all the participants know you. Maybe
I
for the sake of like formality, I would request Asha to introduce you.
Okay, it will be nice that one of my student is
Student.
introducing me.
Yeah,
Actually,
sure.
Asha is my student during her post-graduation.
This is actually really a proud moment for me to introduce my own sir, and that too in an international geoscience colloquium. Um, uh, Dr. Sajan Kumar KS is working as assistant professor in University of Kerala, and he's also now the adjunct assistant professor in Michigan Technological University, USA. So the session is going really well, and it's all because of his efficient monitoring, and we are very happy to have him here. And now I found that he is going to take a presentation also, so we are really glad to know that, and we are eagerly waiting for it. So you may start now, sir.
Thank you, Asha. Thank you very much. So it's regarding 2018 floods. I'll make my... How remote sensing helps us in studying floods, especially of 2018. So before that, I will give a simple introduction about the topic. What is a flood and what is a floodplain? Yes, flood is nothing else. If a river overflows or it comes to the land, then within the prescribed canal or channel, then we call it as a flood. So it is essential for hydrologic cycle because we have from our childhood days, even every spiritual books or any religious books we read, we might have read about a flood. Of course, that was the real case in the real earth also. Everyone knows, those who are in geology and geography field, that earth was formed about 4.56 billion years. So the earth's surface was so hot, maybe about the real temperature mentioned was about 2000 degrees Celsius, and the exaggerated temperature mentioned during the formation of the earth is about 5500 degrees Celsius. That is almost equivalent to the present day surface temperature of sun or the innermost core of the earth, where iron and nickel are in the molten stage. So during that temperature, you cannot expect water to be in the liquid form. It can exist only in the vapor form. So what happened is that when the earth was formed, it was, though it is hot, it is dry because it is hydrous nature of water is not there. So all the water has evaporated, formed clouds, condensed to form clouds, and even if it occurs as rain, it will never reach us on the surface of the earth before it because it gets evaporated much before reaching the earth because of the heat. But at one point of time, when the earth started cooling, the first water started dripping or drizzling down from the atmosphere and reached the surface of the earth as rain. And that was at 4.2 billion years. So once the water falls on the surface of the earth, it took, that was the first rain, and the first rain lasted for about 40,000 years. Can you imagine about 40,000 years? If 3 days rainfall occurs on Kerala, you have seen the result. The entire, most of the part of the earth where waters and washed away or inundated with the water. You can imagine about 40,000 years rain. Actually, it is the rain which modified the entire topography of the earth. It filled the oceans, it filled the lakes, it filled all the water, and that is the start of the hydrologic cycle of the earth. So floods are essential. And actually, what is a floodplain? When flood occurs, the area till which the water enters, we call it as a floodplain. The floodplain keeps on changing based on the intensity or the magnitude of the flood. The floodplain what we see today may not be a floodplain after 10 or 20 years. It depends upon the migrating river. It depends upon the magnitude of the flood which have occurred during that time. So floods, we just know only one type of flood or two type of flood. Actual floods are of four types. The one is the riverine flood, which is associated with the rivers. The second is coastal flooding. Of course, during a tsunami, etc., the most of the area will be inundated. That is a coastal flooding. The third is shallow flooding, like what we see during a heavy rainfall due to the lack of drainage or something else. The water will get pooled on the surface of a city or something else. That's shallow flooding. That lasts only a few hours or a few days. The riverine flooding is of two types. One is overbank flooding and other is a flash flooding. Overbank flooding, it crosses both the sides of the river, and the flash flooding, what happens is that the rain or the flood occurs or breaching occurs on the upstream, and the downstream will get flooded. That is the flash flooding. So saying about Kerala, this is everyone knows a small strip of land between Arabian Sea and Western Ghats, and divided into three physiographic divisions: highland, midlands, and lowland. And this is a physiographic map of Kerala. But the funny part is, we always get proud that we are a coastal state. We always say that it is a coastal state. But the real thing is that the coastal lowlands are very narrow. You can see the coastal lowland, it means not the what is a rich coastal alluvial deposit, rather based on the physiography, that is the elevation up to 4.5 or 4.6 meter above mean sea level is considered as the lowlands of the coastal. We have a small stretch of land, whereas midlands and highlands occupies much of the part of the Kerala. You can see from the figure. And the biggest question or the challenge that we have to answer here is that usually in most of the places where the flood occurs, it occurs in the lowlands or the coastal plains. But here we have witnessed landslides not only in lowlands, but in midlands, not only in midlands, but in highlands also. Because you might have heard in 2018, Munnar is also flooded. So we have to be very cautious about these things. Flood is not a common thing like landslides, but it seldom occurs. When it occurs, it will be of a bigger magnitude. So what happened is in 2018 is that when we compare with the average rainfall of Kerala, it is about 3,107 millimeter, which is when we convert it into million cubic meter or crore cubic meter, it comes about 7,030 crore cubic meter of water. When compared to India, the rainfall in Kerala is 3 times more than what receives in other part of India or the whole of the India. So this is the average rainfall, 3,107. But if we took into the hilly part, we will get much more than 5,000 or 5,500. And there are instances where 6,000 millimeter of rainfall received in hilly areas. If we look into the 2018, what happened is that this is the heatograph of 2018, the southwest monsoon, and it was about 36% than the normal. So that is a huge amount. And that is only for the southwest monsoon, not for the northeast, only for the southeast monsoon. And why we are doing the flood studies, why we are doing the flood mapping, why we are understanding the flood inundation. The first and foremost task is to estimate or what is and how much damage it occurred, because we all, the common person, are rely on the government to get the compensation. So how the compensation? You have to either scientifically prove that these are the areas flooded. So people who have resided in that area has to get the compensation. And we have to estimate how much damage it occurred. And the most important thing that most of the developing nations, including India, is not taking into strict action is that we are not proposing a policy or framework for land use based on this flood inundation. Actually, if a flood inundation occurs, or the biggest flood occurs, the area up to which the inundation occurred will be considered as a free building or a construction free zone. So that should be the policy. Then only we can protect our property and minimize the effects of flooding. So the other thing is that if you want to study flood, unlike any other natural hazards, you have to study at that point of time. Because, for example, I can say that if the flood occurs, there will be only a few hours when the peak flood was there. After some time, it gets withdrawn, or before some time, it may be rising. It is like a bell-shaped curve. The flood is rising, or the acme zone, then started receding. So you should get the signature of that one. But what happens during cloud days or rainy days? You cannot go to a place because it is unapproachable. It is not like you can go by a road and measure it. But the deepest point, the highest point of flood level will be much inside a flooded water body. So you cannot reach there. So next is that flood occur during rainy season. So first I have told that terrestrially you cannot approach the flood because all the places are flooded. So next option is only satellites. So what happens to satellites? During cloudy days, most of the satellites will not work. So we have two types of satellites generally. One works on the optical and other works on the microwave. So of the 100% of the satellites which roams around the Earth, 99.9% of the satellites are optical. Only 0.1% of the satellites are microwave. Microwave has the capacity to penetrate the clouds, reach to the surface of the Earth. So even if it is the cloudy day, even if it is night, it can work. So we need, if it is an monsoon related, water related hazards, we need microwave remote sensing. But that is what we are lacking. Let us see how it works. In 2018 floods, the peak flood started from 15th of August 2018. 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. And the peak, when I have told the peak, from 15 it is rising, the peak was 17 and 18. Then it started receding. So the unfortunate part is India was having two satellites, microwave, RISAT 1B and 1B and 1C, like that, RISAT. But one is for military purpose, which is exclusively monitoring the international boundary. The other has been hit by space debris and it is malfunctioned. So during that time, only one satellite have passed on 17th August. That is Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency's one satellite. And that too, not the entire Kerala. On 18, Canadian Space Agency's RadarSat has passed through that area. The funny part is that this Japan Aerospace Agency is very similar to ISRO. They will not share the data. So whatever the data they have, they will be using for their own purpose. It is very difficult to convince them. But this Canadian Space Agency or the European Space Agency or NASA, they are very much helpful. We wrote a proposal and immediately they have provided the RadarSat 2 data of 18. So you imagine August 15 flood, August 16 flood, August 17 flood, we don't have any data. August 18, only the peak flood and only a small part of Kerala, we got it. The rest we do not have. So that is the funny part of how prepared we are when we face a natural hazard. And rest of the days, August 21 onwards, Sentinel-1 imagery is there. Actually, this is a freely downloadable data, microwave data. You can download it, but it comes, return period is fortnight, that is 14 days. So it comes in August 21, then it will come solely after 14 days. So the return period or the temporal resolution is very low. So we couldn't get the real water pixels or the flood area. What the information we have is of 17 and 18. And if you see some map, stating that this is the flood map of 15 or 16, don't believe it, that are exaggerated or interpolated or extrapolated images, not the real terrestrial water pixel flood maps. So we got it RadarSat and the Freely Sentinel-1, and then what was our study? Our study is divided into several phases. The phase 1 is to map the flood inundation using satellite data, that is the microwave data. And second phase is to identify whether there is any lineaments in modulating the flood. The third one is to identify whether there is any influence of paleo channels or river migration, whether that were the hotspots of waters and flooding. The fourth one is to prepare a model waters and the flooding. Actually, Asha, can you waters and enter some people who are there? Actually, so many entries are there. So
Yes,
that is actually.
I've done it.
Okay, fine. So next is the modeling of flood. At what is the velocity in which flood comes with? It comes when, what happens if a dam breaks? Which are the areas which waters and will get inundated? That is the phase 4. And this is what we are doing. And in fifth 5, we will compile it together to prepare an atlas called Flood Atlas of Kerala. That was our aim. And this is combinedly done by University of Kerala and Michigan Technological University in association with the KSDMA. And this is funded by University of Nebraska and US Consulate in New Delhi. It will not be wise if I am not showing all the organization. That's why I have shown it. So this is a big project which is ongoing. And I will come one by one about the phase 1. So first we have to use waters and flood inundation. And let us see how the flood inundation goes on. So I'm not showing all the methodology, etc. We have just. So what happened is that when we mapped, about 283% increase in water cover is there. That is, if 100% is what the reservoirs and the wetlands and the ponds or the lakes or backwaters, from that one, we got about 283% increase of water. That is, that much area is inundated during flood. And the maximum height reached was 10 meters. This is not a real figure. We will get the real figure once the last work is over. But this one is based on just digitizing the contours or importing the contours into the water pixel and identifying the difference between the lowest elevation and the highest elevation. From that one, we got the 10 meter is the highest elevation or the maximum depth of flood water received in this area. So when compared to other areas, the Kuttanad area was the area where the recession was very poor. The water is not receding. Everyone knows that because it is below sea level. And this flood inundation was actually, I will show you the result. This is a pre-flood map of 19 January 2018. I just took it as a base just to give you an idea how the flooding extent was. So I have told that the first image is of 18 August. So let us see how 18 August works. This is 18 August. This is the 283% increase in water. I am again going back to the previous one. This is a pre-flood map, and this is the flooded map, the highest flooded map. And this area, we chose it. This is Vembanad Lake because this is the only area where we got the imagery for 18 August 2018. For 21 August, we have for the entire Kerala, but for 18th August, there is a peak flood. We have only this data. And this is for actually next 21 August. Next is 27 August. Next 2nd September, 14th September, and 16th September. And this is the collage of all the flood inundation map of the different period. So this was the area of extent of flooding occurred due to 2018 flood. And this can be studied only through microwave remote sensing. And I have told about this is a collage or combined together all the water pixels of all the time period that is for about 1 pre-flood and 6 flooding period. I have combined it together. And regarding the flood depth, this is the pre-flood depth, and what is the highest flooding event on 18 and the next day of 21. Actually, you could see except the color difference, actually the optical illusion may not be maybe hiding or preventing you to distinguish the colors actually. But the thing is that the Kuttanad area, still the red colors are more red color is there, because that is the area has the highest depth of flood water. So in this, that public awards and things, what flood inundation have came in Hindu, because they were happy, because rather than NASA or ISRO, we are the first person to give the flood, and this is only for the 21st August, because during that time we didn't got the 18th August flood. So we took almost the good part of the coal lands in Thrissur up to the Vambanad. The 18th flood, actually we got it much later. And next, the same thing, we published it in a Taylor and Francis journal, because we want to, there is not much content in this one, because we want this one to reach the public at the earliest. So it was a short communication. So that paper has got very much good citation from 2019. This is about, I think, 27 citation we got it till this day. So what is our phase 2? I think this phase 2 I have presented in Christ College during the GEMS workshop. And our idea is to identify the lineaments and check whether these lineaments are favoring or deteriorating the flooding event. So we took two data, one from the microwave data and from the optical data. We have automatically extracted the lineaments. There are so many techniques to extract automatically the lineaments, which I am not describing here, that you can get it in any YouTube or by surfing in the Google, you will get it. So that lineament, the biggest problem is that it will pick all the linear things. It can be a road, it can be a canal, it can be things. So that is why the top two figures have a lot of colors. The first figure, the red color is the automated lineament from microwave data, and the right hand figure, top right hand, is the optical image from which automatically the lineaments extracted. You can see plentiful of lineaments, but in the bottom figure we have physically visually interpreted, identified which are the real lineaments and pick all the lineaments. You can see the bigger lineaments, actually those are the bigger lineaments identified by the Geological Survey of India based on geophysical awards and analysis or interpretation. So depth-wise extension also they have studied it. You know, most of the east-west are east, northeast, south, west, southwest lineaments. The bigger one are the lineaments occupied by river channels, and one which runs northwest to southeast is are the lineaments which makes most of the waterfalls in Kerala. You will see more waterfalls, all those are these lineaments. When the river crosses these lineaments, you will get, that can be a fault. It is not compulsorily, it is a lineament, it is a fault. So we are interested in the smaller ones, how it helped in this one. Let us see. So what we have done is that in the first phase, we have done the flood inundation. We took the floods and put overlaid on the lineaments. So we could identify two types of lineaments in this one. The one is shown as the top left circle, and the second is shown in the top right circle. And I will show you an enlarged version of that one. You see, in this flood, what happened is that the dark, the black line is the lineament. I hope everyone is able to see. And this dark line, you can see all the flood colors from the bottom. The red color is the highest flooding, that is the 18th, up to the blue is the latest flooding, which we have done the analysis for 29 September, the 6th period. So till the end of September, from mid of August to till the end of September, there is no shrinkage of water. The water is still there. Water is still there. That means that this lineament is not facilitating even infiltration, or it is not permitting to flow out. So what we call it, these lineaments is as pooling lineaments. This is helping to pool the water, pool the water. Why it is not going below is because, you know, during flood already, though it is August, in July also there was a flooding event. So almost all the soil got saturated with water, and there is no more space for water to occupy the void spaces subsurface. And second, you can see what happened is that the shrinking of water, the water is getting shrinking. You see, from red color to blue, it is shrinking. So this facilitates this, and only one thing is that it is getting pulled towards the one end. That means that it is trying to discharge. We call it as discharge lineaments. So this is how we identified the role of lineaments. It is not, I have shown you only one example. Actually, there are so many lineaments I should have shown, but I'm not showing it here. And then we can see how the water recession is helping. These blue color circles are with respect to these days. Actually, I can show you. Control Enter. Oh, sorry, it is not working. Okay. Okay, my mouse. Okay, this blue color is the real normal flooding event and water discharge from 21 August to 26 September. And this is the where the discharging, the where I have told the water is getting discharged. Here, if it is 24.20, here the water discharge is 33.95. Where the pooling, it is only 14.84. It is not for a single pooling. It is for all the combination of all the pooling and discharging. And at the end, in the discharging lineaments, at the end of September, 87.15% of water is discharged. Whereas in pooling lineament, it is only 33.07. So this gives a clear distinction about the two types of lineaments, not only visually interpreting, but the track record or the history or the waters and water discharge and pooling helps us to identify. And this is a chart which shows the discharging lineaments, pooling lineaments, and for the entire area. So then we have tried to plot it in a Ross plot with correlating with the stream, and we could see again there is a specified orientation for the discharging lineaments. This one, there is a specific orientation for the pooling lineaments, and the specific orientation for both the discharging and pooling lineaments. So you can see that which are in the northeast, southwest direction, those are the lineaments. The other lineaments are the bigger lineaments which are not facilitating any other waters and water percolation or discharge. So this was our identification. And when the funny part is that when we took a cross section of these lineaments, it is interesting. So the discharging lineaments are bigger in dimension. That is, it runs in hundreds of meters, and it is quite haphazard. So all the lineaments have a surface manifestation. The topography manifestation is, it is a steep slopes. These lineaments are steep slopes, and these are small basin-like things. So it is rather these lineaments are manifested as geomorphic expressions, not the geomorphic expressions expressed as lineaments, rather the lineaments expressed as geomorphic expressions. And that is how this works. So what is the purpose? What is the societal importance for identifying these two types of lineaments? The advantage is that if suppose in later stages, if the government decides what are the ways in which you can start discharging the water during a flood inundation time, you can identify these spots to discharge the water. You extend or dug a canal from these lineaments and take it to the Arabian Sea or nearby backwaters, instead of creating or digging a new canal or something else. And the pooling lineaments, you can identify it and keep it in abeyance or keep it ready for water percolation or water infiltration to augment the groundwater. So these are the two advantages of identifying these lineaments. And this phase 2 work has been accepted in ours and published in another journal. And this is a big team combined from Waters and Michigan Tech, Central Groundwater Board, then Bonali from Italy, I forget his, Parid from Waters and DEFT, IHE DEFT, and Mikado, the person who have presented yesterday. So all those people were there. In phase 3, we hadn't started anything else, just we have started the work, identify the paleo channels, identify the migrating rivers, similarly, how the lineaments played, whether the paleo channels are playing a big role. In the phase 4, we started the work and we have almost completed one area of Pamba River, which I am showing only the figures. This is Pamba River, and you can see what is the dam, and this is a inundation, flood inundation boundary. And we took the area only up to Chenganur, not beyond Chenganur, that is not crossing the backwaters, etc., because there was a huge delay in running this program. This is a big program, and this is the maximum depth. Okay, this depth is in meters. You can see the dam reservoir has more than 200 or up to 200-meter depth water. Where it comes downstream, the depth is very narrow, for up to 2.4. And if you take the maximum velocity, actually you will see that the water in the reservoir is also shows changes, because we have run the model by making a dam break analysis. That is, if the dam break, Idiki dam break, what happens? That is what we have done it. So the dam also will get changed. So this is maximum velocity, that is meter per second, how much meter per second this water flows. And this is the arrival time, at what time it reaches each and every cities which passes through this one. And this is the percentage time inundated. Okay, how much time it got inundated. So of course the reservoir will get always inundated, but the rest of the things you can see percentage time. Why the lowlands are showing less percentage time is that I run it for 100 hours. So the downstream, where the yellow color is there, the water took about 40 hours to reach there. So that inundation is only 100 minus 40, because when I took reservoir, I took it 100. When I took that downstream, the water didn't reach there. Only after 40 hours it reached there. That's why that is only 60 hours. That way the percentage time inundated is low in the lowland. If you run it for some 500 hours, which takes hell of a days, you will get this one. What is it? The real percentage of time inundated. And this is a recession. You see, recession is in hours. In 48 hours, the Periyar, the dam, Idiki Dam, will get drained out. 48 hours. 48 hours is enough for the recession. And when we talk about, I will show you a animation. I do not know. I will try whether the video is working about the arrival time. Let me see. Yes, it is coming. This is the depth of water.
Dr. Sajin, it's not visible on the screen.
This is not visible. Okay, okay. I think I have to show it. I have to share the screen again. I will show new. Sorry, I will share the screen. Let me see. Oh, yes. So I think now you are visible. So this is the depth of water. So this is how the model runs. And I can show you one more video of the velocity. One minute, please. I hope everyone is able to see the video now. It is playing. You can see the velocity. You can see the meandering part, the velocity is very low, whereas the central part, the velocity is high. So this is how we used to calculate what is the velocity, the arrival time, the inundation, all the steps, etc. This is a zoomed part of only one area. So this is what we are doing it with our work. Let me share my PowerPoint. I will. Okay, so these are the phase 4, and phase 5 is the final one, where we will be collating all the things into a what is an atlas. This is another atlas we have prepared, the Landslide Atlas of Kerala. I think Asha may be remembering. Asha also compared for this, the release of this atlas, and the newer version is coming next month in the Geological Society of India portal. And okay. And these are some of the photographs which I think I have shared it when it was there. And these are the a few photographs. And this is a funny thing. Actually, before flooding, they expected the flooding, and they have made the car to stand in such a fashion so that their car will not get spoiled by floodwaters. And the houses get flooded. These are all in Kuttanad area. And this is another interesting thing. You can see a slight tilting of the home, and the tilting occurred exactly in the direction of water recession when the water goes back. So this is a differential settlement. This is played because of the differential settlement of the soils below the foundation. These etc. calls for urgent actions to study the foundation problems. And this is a footage of the aerial view of the flood. And thank you very much. And here is my mobile number and email address. So anyone who need contact me at any point of time, you are free to contact me. And this is what I intended to talk to you. I have gathered all the slides within a couple of hours. So sorry if I have missed something else. And I think I stopped sharing. If there is any question, you can ask me, because we have another 10 more minutes. I'll try my level best to answer your queries, or you can ask through voice itself.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you just elaborate, what do you mean by positive pooling lineaments?
Pooling lineaments.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What is this geomorphic expression?
So I have shown you the figure. Actually, pooling lineaments are geomorphic expressions, are small basin depressions like things. I think I can show you again the cross section.
Is it a positive topography or a negative topography?
Negative topography. Negative topography.
Then how about the recession lineaments?
The recession one, actually, it is a slopey one. It changes from the higher elevation to lower elevation.
Then how do you distinguish between these two on the images?
No, sir, we were not able to distinguish from the imageries. Rather than based on the water pixels present above that lineaments, we have classified.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Are they not in conflict with the normal definition of lineaments in structural geology?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Your definition of lineaments here and definition of lineaments in structural terms, are they not mismatching?
If you stricto sense, if you ask, a little mismatching is there.
Okay. But then you are suggesting to use these lineaments for draining off the water. Will that not trigger the landslides?
No, sir. These are all on lowlands, sir. These are all in lowlands. Actually, the flooding event occurred in much, maybe in the elevation below 7.5 meters. So it will not affect.
No, but then this prescription will only be confined to your area of study and not generalized.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Sajin, we have one more question in the chat box. Could you please read it out and, if possible, answer it?
Okay. What is the latest research-based challenge in the mitigation of floods in hilly terrain? That is a tough question to answer because it varies from place to place. But I can say that what could be the major reason for floods in the hilly stations in Kerala is that now most of the hilly stations become hotspots for all the tourism activity and all the things, and water percolation or draining or chalking of the normal drainages is the main reason. If you go to Munnar, you can see many of the places where the water get blocked, chalked, and that is the main reason. Dumping of waste, etc., are the main reason for flooding in the highlands. And there is even Munnar is a little, we call it as geographically a plateau, even it is in the highlands. But you can see the lack of drainages also on one thing in the plain areas, the other area, plateau part, and other is the chalking of the rivers in the steep slopes are the main reason. I think one more question is there. Is there any flood frequency analysis done earlier, and what about flood forecasting information? I think for Kerala it is not done, Sanjeev. It is not done. Uh, but this one for the flood casting information, actually ISRO and IMD is doing good thing in the Indo-Gangetic plains, not in part of Kerala. Sir, can the identified lineaments be paleo channels? We have studied paleo channels not only by visual interpretation, but rather through resistivity survey also, because that is our third project, and we were not able to identify paleo channels or the overlapping of these lineaments with paleo channels. So that is exactly not paleo channels, Ayapadas. And Ayapadas, I think he's the one who have asked me in Messenger to deliver a talk today. Thank you, Ayapadas. So yes, I think the questions are over. Yes, I think the next speaker is online now. Any other questions?
If you have any other questions, participants may ask, or I think there are one more question has come, or two are there. So could you please attend it, sir?
How do environmental hazards, be it man-made, due to other regions in India, contribute to hazards, be it man-made, due to the other regions? Of course, I think that is able, Shaji. I think that is answered by a little by Karen, in which was the man-made issues like siltation, etc., has caused a tremendous problem, because you see, you might have heard about the Pamba River where a huge amount of sediment have accumulated covering both the banks, and that also caused problems recently. Actually, these are contributed by the developmental activities in the upstream portion, the sediment, etc. That's why they have worsened. Not only if it is water, the damage should not be as big. Once the water has drained out, that should have been cool chill effect. But the sediments which got accumulated is the real reason, or caused so much damages. So that is the reason why. Dr. Saju Minisheri, and great talk. You have noticed any relationship on flood energy, flow energy versus sediment deposit? No, sir, we hadn't done it. I will be very much interested, interested in associating with you if you have any plans on doing that study. Thank you all. I think my time is over. 6 o'clock.
Yeah, before we go to the official vote of thanks by Ms. Asha, I should also thank Dr. Sajin for taking this effort and in keeping the slot fixed, so that we won't miss any talk. And I'm sure that we have learned a lot many things from Dr. Sajin. So it was also a good opportunity for us to listen from you. So with this, I request Ms. Asha to propose a vote of thanks and call upon the next speaker. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. Let me extend my sincere gratitude to you, sir, for taking that effort to give a presentation on the very last minute. And as usual, we know that his presentation was wonderful. That is why the participants actually requested him to do a presentation. So thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Asha and Dr. Lindo, for the kind words. And I think I will now invite the next speaker. Actually, next speaker is Vishnu. Vishnu has done all his schooling and his education in Trivandrum. And then he have done his BTech and MTech, BTech in civil engineering and MTech in geoinformatics from College of Engineering Trivandrum. How I got acquainted was that I was having a project to study the landslides on Mars, which was funded by ISRO. And other interesting thing is that when Vishnu was selected in that project, he was doing that work. But once Vishnu told me that after coming to University of Kerala, I have done all work other than the study of landslide on Mars, because he was involved in all the students project and small projects which I am getting. When unfortunately we are not able to finish our project, the specified project on landslide on Mars, still it is pending, which I am devoting a much time. And okay, so after that project, he was selected as a PhD student in Michigan Technological University, where he is a PhD scholar. And why I intentionally invited him is that he is doing his studies on landslides, especially in Idiki district, where he have came up with a good model. Because I can say you an interesting thing is that in 2018, when the flood occurred, everyone will wonder, in Idiki, there are 5 rain gauge stations maintained by IMD. I will say only IMD. I will not count all other rain gauges, because that are run by state agencies or private agencies which are not reliable. Only IMD is the authorized or the reliable one. But the unfortunate part is that out of the 5, 4 are malfunctioned during that time. So that means that out of the 5, we are having data from only 1 rain gauge, and that too from Todupuzha, which is in the midlands, not in the highlands. So, but if you ask IMD the data of 2018, you will get the data for the 5 rain gauges. I do not know from where they have generated that 5 rain gauges, because this information was said to me by the district collector of Idiki. So what Vishnu have done is that I'm not saying much into detail. He have came up with a new model for getting rainfall data for Idiki, which is essential not only for studying landslides, rather to predict and give an early warning system for the landslides. With these words, I welcome Vishnu for deliver your talk.
Thank you, sir. So I think the colloquium is spread over different time zones, so I don't know what to say right now. Anyway, good evening to all folks from India. Good morning to everyone from UK, and I think it's just me from US. So anyway, so hope the talks were going fine. So let me just share my screen. So hopefully everyone can see that. So this is where I do my PhD. This is the Technological University. As you see, it's a frosty place. It's a snow-covered place, like a winter castle with forts and moats and all such things. So this is the campus. It's as you can see there, it's very close to the Lake Superior in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's a completely snow-covered place for most part of the year. So there is a general saying here that we have 3 months of summer, a month of fall, and then everything else is winter here. So the community itself is adapted to winter and inches and inches of snow. Sometime, I should say, feet of snow. So I think the record snow measurement was somewhere about 20 or 30 feet. So Right now, the winter season has started, and if we step out of our houses, what we see is just snow, snow, and snow everywhere. So the community in itself is adapted to this this frosty, snowy, wintry climate. So we have all sorts of snow-related activities here. We have ice hockey. There's something called broom ball. That's what you see in the left top corner. Then there is something called the Winter Carnival, where the entire community comes together and carves ice statues, like the elaborate castle that you see in the top right corner. And it's actually very beautiful in the fall, as you see in the left bottom corner. With it's an array of different colors, and it's a treat to the eye. And we call ourselves the Huskies. So it's an iconic husky statue that you see in the top middle portion. So there are 5 different colleges as part of MTU. So we have the College of Science and Arts. We have the College of Engineering, College of Forest Resource and Environmental Science, College of Computing, and College of Business. So there are different engineering streams here, like civil and environmental engineering, geological and mining engineering. That's where I do my PhD. Then there is chemical engineering, biotechnology. Then there are the science fields. There is chemistry. There is a degree in geology, in physics. And there is an exclusive department for forest and environmental studies, like that. So, having given a brief introduction of where I come from, or rather where I am learning my stuff, let's move on to the presentation that I'm offering here. So the 3 pictures that you see, they are iconic to every Keralite now. I think most of the Keralites can immediately identify to, I don't know what to say, dread or horror when you see this. So these 3 are photographs corresponding to the 2018 flood, to the 2019 landslide in Kavalapara in Malappuram, and the 2020 landslide in Petumudi, Idukki. So this is when Kerala as a society, I should say, got introduced to the gravity of natural disasters. So till then, we were relatively a calm and serene place. But from the floods of August 2018, we started facing the rage and fury of nature. And most of it, if not all, is concerned with heavy rainfalls. So in 2018, we received anomalously high measures of rainfall, especially during the month of August. And it was around 20 to 40% more rainfall than what was normally experienced. And that heavy rainfall, especially over the catchment area of the various dams and reservoirs that Kerala has, led to a flood of enormous proportions, a flood that could essentially be called as a 100-year flood. And it was, there were a lot of landslides as well. So I had the opportunity to do a field visit of all these landslides back in 2018. And there were thousands and thousands of small landslides. So what get recorded and what gets studied are the relatively larger landslides. And they itself, a recently published study says, the Idukki district alone recorded 2,223 landslides during 2018. The years 2019 and 2020 also followed enormous proportions of landslide activities, though the floods were slightly lower than 2018 in 2019 and 2020. But the landslides are still very frequent and is a growing concern for the entirety of Kerala, especially the hillsides in near the Western Ghats. So, as I said, the landslides in Kerala are essentially rain triggered. It's heavy rainfall that is causing this. So, if we could come up with an early warning system that can predict landslides based on the rainfall activity, based on the rainfall measures, it could essentially save the life of hundreds of people and also property and livestock and such things. So as part of my PhD work, I am working on a project there where we are trying to come up with an early warning system for predicting landslides based on what we call rainfall threshold. So it's like there is a threshold for cumulative rainfall value beyond which it'll initiate landslides. So we are trying to identify this threshold in Idiki, in various parts of Idiki, and to come up with a model that would predict landslides and serve as an early warning system. So that is what my presentation is going to be. It's about assessing the suitability of rainfall products for modeling rain-triggered landslides in a data sparse region. And by data sparse region, I mean an area where there is very less information on the rainfall. So for people who are not very familiar with Kerala, this is a location map of Kerala. It is in the southern tip of India, near to the Western Ghats, and Idiki is
Slides
very
are not visible.
Idiki is very close to the Western Ghats. It's marked in there in the black polygon there. So the issue with Idiki is, as I said before, in order to model a landslide early warning system, we need very good rainfall data, accurate rainfall data. But as Dr. Sarjan said prior to my presentation, and as is the actual scenario, the number of landslides, the number of rain gauges in Idiki is very minimal. So there is only 5 rain gauges in Idiki, and that covers an area of around 4,600 square kilometers. So that is a very sparse rain gauge density. And there are so many issues that will arise in landslide modeling if we rely on such a sparse data. And through my presentation, I will be discussing about the limitations of such a sparse rain gauge network. So what you see here is the landslide distribution in Idiki, and this is these are all the landslides that occurred in Idiki during 2018. So as I said before, there is 2,223 recorded landslides, and you can see these small points spread, through the entirety of Idiki, especially concentrated in the in the middle part of Idiki, which is we could say direction-wise northwest. That's where we have the most number of landslides. And you can also see the rain gauge spread there. So when you compare the rain gauge locations with the landslide spatial spread, I think just from looking at this figure, you can get a a rough estimate of how poor the rain gauge distribution is if we have to use the rain gauge data to model landslides. So as you can see, the majority of landslides is close to the north and northwest part of the district, but the rain gauges, apart from two of them, which are the Idiki rain gauge as well as the Muna rain gauge, the remaining three rain gauges are far away from the actual center of frequent landslide activity, if I could term it like that. And if you remember what Dr. Sarjan said before my presentation, the only functional rain gauge of this was Todupura, and if it is Todupura, then Todupura actually falls in an area where there is actually no landslides. It's a comparatively flatter terrain. So where it matters, at least as far as landslide modeling is concerned, the rain gauges are very limited, and that presents significant issues for any modeling activity. So the objective of the study that we conducted as part of a preliminary phase of our modeling was to compare between the different kind of precipitation data that is available. So conventionally, the precipitation data that is available all through the world is, and what hydrologists predominantly use is the rain gauge data. Rain gauge data is supposed to be very accurate because it is ground-based. It's the ground truth data. And then there is satellite precipitation data. So there is satellites for everything now. There are different satellites, there are remote sensing satellites. So we can use the satellite data to learn anything from floods to forest fires, or to locate the nearest grocery shop, as we do with the GPS satellites. So likewise, there are weather satellites, and then there are these radar satellites. We call them synthetic aperture radars. Then there is, basically there are weather and rainfall estimating satellites, which basically carry some kind of a radar sensor in it. So due to the availability of satellite data, and there is an advantage for satellite data, and that is its coverage. The satellite data is has almost global coverage, and it is a continuous data. Unlike the rain gauge data, which is a discrete data, which is just available on certain select locations, the satellite data is available throughout on a continuous manner. And it is available on a very high temporal resolution. Temporal resolution means this weather, the rain fall satellite data is available for every hour, for every day, for every month, for like that. So the temporal resolution is very high. So we get rainfall information corresponding to every hour from satellite. And thus it can be used as an alternative to rain gauge precipitation data, especially in areas where the rain gauge network is sparse, as is the case in Idiki. So in this study, in this presentation, I'll be discussing, I'll be trying to bring out a comparison of the rain gauge based precipitation data as well as the satellite based precipitation data for Idiki. So the first satellite-based rainfall or precipitation measuring mission on a global scale was a tropical rainfall measuring mission called the TRMM. So the TRMM lasted for around 2013 or 2014, and after that it was succeeded by the Global Precipitation Mission. So as you see in the figure, in the image here, it is actually a constellation of satellites. So there is a core observatory. The Gpm Core Observatory is developed and managed by NASA and JAXA. So JAXA is the Japanese space exploration agency. And so there is one core satellite for GPM, and then there is a constellation of other satellites from different countries and different space agencies. So there is contribution of India, that's the Mega Tropiquus. Then there are satellites from the European Space Agency, from France. So there are different weather observing, rainfall observing satellites that form a constellation, and it's that the entirety of that constellation is called the Global Precipitation Mission. So the Core Observatory, developed by NASA and JAXA, kind of combines all these data, the data from all these satellites together, calibrates them, and gives a standard global precipitation data, which we have used for this study. So the GPM has different levels of data, and the level 4, or the most processed and research ready product, is called iMerge. That is an algorithm that they use to merge rainfall precipitation measures from all these different satellites. So there are different iMerge products available for the research community to use, and it is available on a spatial resolution of 10 kilometers. So roughly 1 pixel in a GPM iMerge satellite image will be 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer. And it is available on different temporal resolutions, on different time steps. It is available on an hourly basis. It's available on a daily basis as well as on a monthly basis. But essentially, the iMerge product is divided into 3 types, which are the 4-hour latency early product, the 14-hour latency late product, and the roughly 45 days latency final research ready product. So here latency means the 4-hour period, the early period, the early data is available 4 hours after collection. The 14-hour or the late data is available 14 hours after collection. So the first one can be used for any kind of real-time nowcasting or monitoring applications. A bit more accurate version of it will be the 14-hour latency data, but both of them are concerned as near real-time GPM data. And then there is the final or research-ready product. So the research-ready product uses a lot of calibration and calibration from field data, like rain gauge data, wherever that is, they are available, to calibrate the satellite-based measurements and provide a data product that is research ready. So for a domain like landslide monitoring and early warning, we need either one of the near real-time data, which is either the 4-hour latency or the 14-hour latency. In our study, we took the 14-hour latency daily rainfall data because we were trying to ascertain the usability of satellite data, and so we wanted a data with minimum errors. So we took the 14-hour latency daily data and compared it with the rain gauge data to see how much useful the satellite data is and how much we can use it as an alternative to the rain gauge data in monitoring landslides. So our comparison gave this result. So these are the 5 available rain gauge stations, and these the values, the precipitation values that you see are the cumulative rainfall values for 5 days prior to August 15. So in rain-triggered landslides, there is a term called antecedent rainfall values. So antecedent rainfall values is the cumulative rainfall value prior to the occurring of a landslide. So suppose if a landslide occurred in August 18, then the 5-day antecedent value will be the rainfall measures corresponding to the 5 days prior to the 18th of August. So the idea is that rain-triggered landslides occur as a cumulative effect of rainfall due to the accumulation of rainfall in soil and the loss of, which contributes to the eventual loss of shear stress, which in turn causes slope failures. So there is a term called rainfall threshold. So I'll just try to explain it using an example. So consider a place in Idiki has a chance of landslide initiation if a rainfall of 200 mm occurs through a period of 5 days. So if in the first 4 days 160 mm of rainfall occurs there, then we can safely say that if 40 mm of rainfall is to occur on the 5th day, then a landslide will occur there for sure. So this is what rainfall threshold study is all about. So that is what we are also trying to come up with. We are also trying to come up with a rainfall threshold value, or with different rainfall threshold values for different places in Idiki that could accurately predict landslides based on the rainfall values. So for this study, we have considered 5-day antecedent rainfall values for the 18th of August. So the landslides in Idiki during 2018 was spread over a window of 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe even a month, and that in August, because that was corresponding to the heavy rainfall activity and corresponding to the flood activity. So the day of the peak flood was the 18th of August, and so these landslides, as I said, there's numerous landslides, about 2,000 landslides. So the exact date of occurring of these landslides was not recorded, but it is a known fact that it occurred in a 2 or 3 week window corresponding to the heavy floods and rainfalls. So for the purpose of generalizing the study, we considered all these landslides as occurring on the 18th of August. We gave a common date of occurrence to these landslides, took that as the 18th of August as it is corresponding to the peak floods, and then modeled whatever study we were trying to achieve using that day as the day of initiation of landslides. So the values that you see here is the 5-day antecedent values corresponding to the 18th of August. As recorded by the rain gauge stations in Peermede, Todupuzha, Munnar, Idiki, and Mailarumpara. And as you can see from the table here, the GPM, the satellite observed precipitation, is under-predicting by a huge margin. So there is actually a correlation between the rain gauge observed values and the satellite observed values. But the actual values as such observed by the satellite is very low. It is under-predicting. But as I said before, the rain gauges are discrete points, while the satellite data is a continuous data and has a better chance of having better spatial variability. On the other hand, rain gauge stations have high accuracy, but very poor spatial variability. So in order to come up with a reliable rainfall input for monitoring landslides, we needed to combine these two advantages together. Like we need to combine the accuracy of rain gauges and the spatial variability of satellite data. So meanwhile, what you see here on the right hand side is the actual GPM data corresponding to the Idukki district for these 5 days prior to August 18. So as you can see there, the satellite data offers better spatial variability. So the entirety of Idukki is covered. You can see continuous data throughout Idukki, while the rain gauge data is just 5 points. So we need to combine these two together, or in a sense, we need to merge these two data together so that we get a new product that has accurate values, accurate precipitation, as well as spatially variant precipitation. So we did come up with a process for that. So I'm going to explain that process here. That process is called conditional merging, where we merge the rain gauge precipitation value with the satellite observed precipitation. So this is the rain gauge observed values of Idukki. Let us call that RG for rain gauge. We perform an operation called interpolation. Interpolation is a spatial process where we take sample data and we try to integrate that into a boundary, into a study area, as in this case, the Idukki district. So when we interpolate this, this is what we get. So it becomes continuous. The discrete rain gauge data becomes continuous, as in the case of the satellite observed precipitation. Let us call that IRG. So that is the interpolated rain gauge data. Then this one is the satellite GPM data, and the green dots are the rain gauges that you see there. So let us call this data GPM. And then what we do is we do something strange here. I'll explain the logic behind that. So what we do is we extract the satellite pixel values, the satellite observed rainfall values corresponding to the rain gauge locations. That is corresponding to the 5 green dots that you see there. So essentially that'll leave us with a new data set, which is, we'll have rain gauge observed precipitation information corresponding to the 5 rain gauge stations. And we'll also have satellite observed precipitation information corresponding to the 5 rain gauge stations. So we extract the satellite pixel values corresponding to the 5 rain gauge stations, and then we interpolate that again. We'll get data which looks similar to the satellite data, but the values will be slightly different here because we are interpolating it. Let's call it IGPM. And that is where the conditional merging operation comes into play. So what we do is we try to ascertain the error in the spatial variability of this data. So for that, since we have satellite GPM data and an interpolated GPM data, which is basically an interpolation of the discrete satellite values corresponding to the rain gauge stations, we try to figure out an error value between the original GPM data and the interpolated GPM data. So this error value will be indicative of the spatial spread of the data, or the error that can cause due to interpolating a discrete precipitation data into a continuous precipitation data. So basically, this term, this GPM minus IGPM term, will be giving the error that can occur due to the sparse spatial distribution of a rainfall measurement system, whatever it is. In our case, it is rain gauge. So we are basically trying to identify the error that can occur due to a sparse rainfall measuring system using the term GPM minus IGPM. So once we get that error field sorted out, we just add that error with the interpolated rain gauge value, because that we have to remember one thing, that the accurate data here is the rain gauge data, even though it has very poor spatial spread. So what we do is we identify the error in the spatial spread of rain gauges using the GPM minus IGPM term, and then we add that spatial spread information to the accuracy of the rain gauges that is seen in the third term, that is the IRG. So using this process, we combine the accuracy of the rain gauges and the spatial spread of satellite data, and we get a new product, which we call the conditionally merged GPM. So we again compared the rain gauge and the GPM values. So this table shows a before and after comparison. So before doing the conditional merging process and after doing the conditional merging process. So you can see before doing the conditional merging process, the GPM, the satellite data was heavily under predicting rainfall. But as you can see, the difference between the rain gauge and satellite data was in the thousands. That's a huge difference for 5 days of rainfall. But after performing conditional merging, the values became pretty similar. The satellite values became almost as accurate as the rain gauge values. The difference is fairly small, and all this by preserving the spatial spread of satellite data. So now, after performing the conditional merging, we are getting a product that preserves the accuracy of rain gauges as well as the spatial spread of satellites. We did perform a cross-validation on this data, and the RMSE values were fairly small for such a study. So there is the credibility, that is data for the credibility of the model. Then what we did is we went on and tried to compare the rain gauge data, the rain gauge based rainfall measurement, as well as the conditionally merged GPM rainfall measurements with the landslide distributions to see which of this covers the landslide distribution better. So what we did is we divided the entire study area. We divided IDKI into zones of influence according to the rain gauge location. So we divided IDKI into 5 rain gauge zones. So each of these polygons correspond to the area of influence under each rain gauge stations. And the blue circles indicate areas of high landslide activity, and these areas are fairly away from the rain gauges. You should understand that this is actually kilometers and kilometers of distance from the rain gauges. So each pixel, as you saw in the previous slides, each pixel in a GPM image is actually 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers. So there is kilometers and kilometers of difference between the rain gauges and the blue circles that you see here. So that essentially indicates that the rain gauges are not spatially spread in a manner to represent the landslide spread. But when we consider the GPM data, the issue of not covering the landslide spread dissipates. So as you can see, areas of high landslide activity often corresponds to very high rainfall measures as measured by GPM. So this is the kind of spatial information that is lacking when we consider the rain gauges alone. So as you can see here, the blue circles are corresponding to higher ranges of rainfall, uh, medium and very high rainfall values. So in the previous case, by doing conditional merging, we ensured the accuracy of satellite data. We kind of improved the accuracy of satellite data. And now, by overlaying the landslide distribution, we kind of ascertain the spatial spread of or the contribution of satellite information to the spatial spread of landslides as well. So what we did next was to classify these landslides based on their location within the zones of influence of each rain gauges. So the Idiki rain gauge, under the influence of the Idiki rain gauge, comes a maximum number of landslides. So there is 1,156 landslides under the Idiki rain gauge. And as you can see, there are 843 in Munnar, 71 in Mayalampara, 75 in Pyramid, and Todupura has 78 landslides. So the key factor here is, if we classify landslides based on the rain gauge values alone, then each of these landslides will be having a unique rainfall value associated with it. So consider a landslide in Idiki. So the 5-day antecedent value of a landslide in Idiki, which means a 5-day antecedent value of 1,156 landslides, will be a single value. It will be 815.76 mm. So basically, if we use this data to model landslides, we'll be saying that anywhere in Idiki, anywhere near to the Idiki rain gauge, which is obviously perhaps 100,000, perhaps a 1,000 kilometer square area, any landslide that occur within such a large area will occur if the 5-day antecedent rainfall value is 815.76 mm. But when we consider the rainfall value as obtained from the GPM satellite data, we can see that it is not actually a single rainfall value, but a range of rainfall values. So GPM basically says that anywhere in the vicinity of, anywhere in the area of influence of the Idiki rain gauge, a landslide can occur if the rain gauge, if the rainfall is, if the 5-day antecedent rainfall is as low as 710 mm or as high as 840 mm. So here is the problem if we rely solely on rain gauges. So we'll be predicting that in order for a landslide initiation to happen in an area of influence under the Idiki rain gauge, the 5-day antecedent values have to be 815 mm. So as you see from the next column, a landslide can occur even if the 5-day antecedent rainfall value is 710 mm. So basically, we will be saying that a rainfall won't occur, a landslide won't occur until there is 815 mm of rainfall, but a landslide will occur even if the rainfall is 100 mm less than that. Now, that is a dangerous condition. Another case is, we say that a landslide will occur if the rainfall is 815 mm, but it won't happen until the rainfall is 840 mm. So what happens is, if we rely on the rain gauge data alone for predicting landslides, we'll be dealing with a lot of false positives and false negative predictions. So we'll be predicting that a landslide will be happening for a certain value of precipitation, but a landslide will be happening before that rainfall threshold happen. or in another case, we'll be predicting that a landslide will happen for a particular rainfall threshold, but a landslide won't happen there. It will happen only after even more rain falls. So that is where the importance of satellite-based rainfall data, which has better spatial spread, comes in case of landslide prediction. So this is the statistics of the scenario that I explained before. If we solely rely on rain gauge stations for rainfall input for predicting landslides, we'll be resulting with these much of errors. So Idiki alone will have 623 false positives, where we say that landslides will occur and it won't happen. And there will be 388 false negatives. So we say that a landslide will not occur, but it will occur. And that's a dangerous scenario. And when you look at Munnar, the number of false negatives is very high. It's 710 landslides. So in 710 locations, we say that no, a landslide will not occur, but actually a landslide will occur. So, and as you can see, the total number of false negatives is 1,140. And that is a very, very huge number. So this is the danger of relying on a sparse rain gauge network data alone for predicting rain-triggered landslides. So this is a graphical representation of the false negatives, false positives, and true positives that can occur if we follow the scenario that I explained. So as you can see, the true positives are fairly less. They're the points in green, and they are actually close to the rain gauge points. Everywhere else, where there is a lack of rain gauge spread, you see a lot of false negatives and a lot of false positives. So this is the issue with having a sparse rain gauge network to model landslides. So to conclude, in this phase 1 of our study, where we try to ascertain the usability of the rain gauge-based rainfall precipitation product and the satellite-based rainfall precipitation product. These are the inferences that we came up with. So basically, the GPM satellite data, at least for Idiki, it underpredicts precipitation, but it has better spatial variability compared to the rain gauges, as well as when we compare it with the landslide spatial distribution. The conditional merging process improves the accuracy of the satellite-based rainfall precipitation by a large margin, and it makes it, the process actually makes the satellite data as accurate as the ground-based rain gauge data. So in areas of sparse rain gauge network, we can use satellite data as an alternative for rain gauge precipitations. But it is always advised to have a better rain gauge, a rain gauge spread, a better rain gauge network. And that is what the second phase of our project will be. We are trying to locate more optimal rain gauge locations, and we are trying to install more and more rain gauges there so that we get a ground-based rainfall network that can be a lot more reliable in landslide monitoring. So that is basically with my presentation, and time for questions.
Vishnu, I think we don't have time because already the first talk is postponed because Tabas was not able to join through Zoom from his office. Now he have joined, but you have one question in the chat box. If you are able to answer it quite fast.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I'll ask Asha to make a co-host. Tabas is online. You can make him co-host.
Okay, sir.
Error due to rainfall measuring instrument value, spatial spread. That is what he is mentioned. Error due to.
I didn't quite understand what that is. What's? I didn't quite understand what the question is.
Okay, you can answer. The last one is GPM data
Yeah.
freely available for whole India.
Yes, it is available for the whole of India.
Okay, you don't want to type. You can just answer it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. GPM data is available. It's freely available.
Yes, due to lack of time, I am not entertaining any more questions because already we are running late. Thank you very much, Vishnu. It will be better if you can join for the next talk of Tabas also. That will be interesting to hear where he will be using the maximum.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I request all the participants to remain seated like we strictly instruct in our classroom because the first talk is now will be live. Sorry, Thabas, for bothering you. Sorry, participants, for making you wait. Actually, I will again introduce Thabas Ranjan Martha. Dr. Thabas, I have told to other participants, anyhow, I will repeat it. It was in 1998 when one of my friend, Sajan Arnair, who was studying for MSc, MTech in ISM, came to my college, University College in Trivandrum, to carry out geological studies in Puteti Cyanide in Kanyakumari district. So he was accompanied by his two friends. One was Thabas Martha. And from that time onwards, I know him, but everything else, because we both gone to different organizations. But in 2012, again, we got opportunity to meet each other at OT for a landslide conference organized by Geological Survey of India. But from that day onwards, we are in touch, and we have come up with the 2 publications, and the third is at Anvil, and probably that will also have some good impact. And saying about Thabas, he done his graduation from Berhampur University, from Calicut College, MTech from Indian School of Mines, where he done his thesis, geological study of carbonatites near Kudamkulam. And 2011, he have done his PhD from University of Twente under Professor Case Van Westen, who delivered a talk last day. So he was subserved as a scientist in ISRO in 2001, and for the last about 19 years, he's serving ISRO. As of today, his citation is 1,424. That is quite rare for a person from working in a government organization. So that shows his credentials, that his commitment to the science. And he has obtained several awards and honors, which I am not saying because of lack of time. Thabas, only one request is that all the participants are sitting for an extra time. So if you can restrict up to 7:30, so that will be good, so that we will wind up the program by 7:30. Thank you very much, Thabas, for joining us. Please start with your presentation.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen.
Sure, you can start sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, is it now you are able to see my screen, Sadin?
Yes, we are able to see your screen.
Yeah, I think this one is coming on the screen. I am just trying to get rid of that. I'm not able to remove this top panel, which is displayed on the screen.
Actually, the problem is that you might have highlighted only this slide for presentation. You close it again, stop sharing.
Yeah, yeah.
You stop sharing and go with another slide for presentation.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Tabas, you close this one. If this is not the PowerPoint, you close this one. Open only the PowerPoint which you have, and then share that one.
yeah, I have opened only the PowerPoint which I'm going to present.
But we are able to see this PowerPoint. We are able to see the PowerPoint.
Okay, you are able to see the full screen of my PowerPoint?
Yes. Yes, we
Okay.
are able to see your full screen.
Okay. Then it's fine. So then let me start. Good evening to all participants from India. It's a pre-Diwali night, and I can see bursting crackers in Hyderabad skies. And but sorry for my delayed presentation due to some technical snag. So as you know, today's presentation is about geohazard study using geospatial technique on a regional scale. So I'm going to cover 4 major geohazards. They are landslides, earthquake, volcano, and coal fire. Okay. So basically, what is ISRO doing on those geohazard front using remote sensing and GIS technique? That's what basically I'm going to cover tonight. So to begin with the landslide, this is a typical picture of a landslide, a large landslide in Himalayas, particularly in Uttarakhand state. You can see various features. I mean, which we study landslides on the ground or from the satellite image. They are basically loss of vegetation, then steep slope, and they're occurring in the steep valley, all kind of features. These are the features which are going to help us in identifying landslide from the satellite image. Okay, so now I'm going to begin with landslide inventory. So what we do basically is we have high resolution satellite images, and we use the satellite image before the disaster, like this one, and then we have image after the disaster, and then we do a change detection technique. By comparing the 2 satellites, then we prepare a landslide inventory map. This is nothing but, in layman's term, we can call it a census of landslides. How many are there, where do they occur, and what are their sizes, etc. So this is what we map using satellite data. This is very helpful because in the hilly terrain, it is difficult to travel point to point because of inaccessibility of the terrain. And but when we have large number of landslides, then mapping them through a traditional visual image interpretation is quite difficult. So in RSC, ISRO has developed a new image processing technique wherein we automatically map those landslides. They need a multispectral satellite image and a high resolution digital elevation model. We apply image segmentation technique in which, based on certain spectral homogeneity, we classify the image as a segment and non-segments. And then once we have segments after the image segmentation, then we apply object-based image classification technique in which we try to describe each object with certain parameters, basically based on their NDVI values, based on their brightness, and then texture, then relief, slope angle, etc. Based on these parameters and taking also shape and size into picture, we classify the landslides, and we also classify the typology of landslides, like they are debris flow, debris slide, etc. These are the states, the algorithm which we have developed, and it runs in software called Ecognition, wherein we'll try to map the landslides and non-landslides. These are the various steps of automatic landslide mapping with image segmentation, optimization of the segments, then classification of the segments, then classification of segment as landslide, and further the landslide as rotational or translational landslides. This is study we did recently for 2018 Kerala disaster, particularly Kerala as well as the Karnataka state. And most of my examples will be from Kerala, but there are certain examples from elsewhere also. I'll be subsequently telling about that. Kerala in 2018 witnessed a severe flood and landslides. You can see here high resolution Indian satellites as well as satellites from Worldview and Pleiades, they are USGS, and CNES, the French agency satellites, which you have used to map the different damage features. In this case, you can see there is a railway tunnel which was blocked due to landslides. So this is an important train corridor or rail corridor which we have mapped and find out what are the places the landslide have blocked. This is the recent example of Rajamala Hill landslide in Kerala. You can see this is Indian satellite data Cartosat 2V, where we have identified the source zone, the runout path, the deposition zone, etc. These are the features which we map and supply to as a value-added product to state disaster authorities. While mapping landslides from satellite image, there are certain limitations like topographic shadow, cloud cover, etc. So we take multi-temporal images to avoid such features. You can see here there are certain images which are covered by cloud, and in the next image that area is cloud free, so those landslides are mapped. And certain period, particularly in Himalayas, since it is east-west oriented, the regional direction of Himalaya east-west, so particularly the northern slopes are sun shadow. So we try to get images, particularly in the month of September, so that sun shadow will be less. So by taking multi-temporal images, we try to capture all the landslides they have occurred in a particular event. We have also a mobile app wherein we try to map smaller size landslides, particularly along road corridors in urban areas, those which are blocked by the from satellite viewing, which are not able to map from satellite image. So that way we enrich the entire database of landslide by mapping from the image as well as by mapping using the mobile app. The perfect classical example of geospatial technology to collect disaster-related information, where in your mobile app, GPS, remote sensing, GIS, all the features are used. These are different aspects of mobile app, wherein we have a drop-down menus to fill in the type of landslide, what is the size of landslide, the cause of the landslide, etc. A lot of features can be fed by a person who is working at the ground, and it can be sent, which will come to a centralized server. This is what we have compiled the landslide database of India. As of 2018, we have mapped almost 50,000 landslides, and as of today, it has gone up to 70,000. So by this process, we are trying to map all landslide which is happening in the Himalayas as well as in the Western Ghats. By mapping such a landslide, we have created a lot of database. The database we have tried to identify district-wise landslide risk exposure. So in this study in India, we found out that out of 145 districts, the Rudraprayag in northern India is the most affected district in terms of landslide. Nevertheless, down south in Kerala, because of the last 3 years of landslide disaster, 4 districts are coming in the top 10 list. So Kerala, then Uttarakhand, and the Northeast, and Jammu and Kashmir, these are the areas where we have mostly see the landslides. And coming to damage assessment, since we have high resolution satellite images, this image, whatever you are seeing now, the left side is the pre-disaster Cartosat 2 of 1 meter resolution. The right side is the post-disaster Cartosat 2 of same resolution. You can see a lot of buildings were damaged. The places which are highlighted with yellow circles, they are the places where the bridges were washed out. And the red circle shows a temple city or a temple, Kedarnath temple, which is not affected. And a lot of buildings, the hotels, they were completely buried because of the debris coming from the top slope. This is another case study wherein we have used USGS wall view image, GOI image to find out. You can see a particular place where the building is in the runout path. The left panel shows the landslides before it happened, and the right panel shows the landslide after it happened. Okay, so you can see all the buildings they are in the runout path, they are completely demolished. Now then, coming to the monitoring part, as it is said, satellite is eye in the sky. Okay, so this gives us an opportunity to monitor a particular disaster event frequently. Of course, we have a certain limitation because of the repeativity of satellites are not that frequent, but we have emergency payload programming at ISRO, wherein we can focus the satellite camera for a particular area consistently. So that means if a area is of very importance for landslide disaster or earthquake or any disaster, then we can point towards that and get continuously data. So such examples which you can see, one in the Nepal where a river which was blocked by the landslide disaster, and we continuously monitor that because there can be flash floods and people living in the downstream, they will be affected. Similarly, there is a case in Zanskar Himalayas in Jammu and Kashmir where a landslide has blocked a narrow valley and almost a lake in the upstream side of a dimension of 17 kilometers was created. So we continuously monitor this lake for a 5 months period so that the downstream side is safe. Coming to another example of geospatial technology, it is susceptibility, and it's a more widely used term, and more most commonly available known to anybody also nowadays. This is a spatial probability of occurrence of a future landslide. So in this process, we try to map based on certain geofactors. So what are the areas which are prone to landslide in future? We are not telling when they will happen. We are telling where they will happen, whether it's a highly prone to landslide or it's a less prone to landslide, like that. So there are different approaches available, but mostly related, or you can say they are basically the causative factors for landslide occurring: land use, then slope angle, then soil texture, and etc. Then we have a distal elevation models, the relief. So these parameters we have identified and we have mapped. Then finally we have used a different technique. Here we have used information value technique, which is basically a bivariate statistical method. We have compared all the parameters to the existing occurrence of landslide. By comparing that, we estimated what is the weightage of that class of the particular thematic parameter for future occurrence. Like we have lithology, then within that mica schist, then granite gneiss, then quartzite, sandstone, etc. So which is the rock type which is contributing more towards landslide? As you know, mica schist is a troublesome rock type, which mostly witness a lot of landslide in the monsoon time. Similarly, the slope angle, then slope curvature. So by comparing all the things, we prepared a landslide susceptibility map. We categorize them into 5 moderate and low categories, and then we assess the accuracy of that. How good is that? I mean, whether the model which you selected in this case is good enough to predict future occurrence of landslide. So is it that I am missing some parameters? So ROC, receiver operating characteristic curve, is a technique by which we try to measure the accuracy. We try to find out the true positive, false positive, like that. Then true positive rate, false positive rate, they are estimated. Then they were plotted here. If the area under curve is more than 80%, then it is called as a good model, reasonably good model. And if it is more than 90%, this is really a good model. So that means with a lot of 90% certainty, it can predict the future occurrence of landslide. Okay, now I'll come to landslide early warning, wherein we have, as you know, most of the places in India are rain trigger landslides. Okay, when the rainfall happens, the pore water pressure increases, and then the landslide occur. So monitoring the pore water pressure for every inch of land in India is very difficult. So we have developed empirical relationship by which We studied past historical rainfall intensity duration. Then we found out what is the duration and what is the intensity which is responsible for landslide. So by doing that, we have also an ISRO system where we have MOSDAQ, we have this rainfall forecast, very high resolution, 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer. So that rainfall forecast with actual rainfall from CPC data or with the IMD data, we calculate the antecedent rainfall. By doing that, we issue early warning every 3 days in advance. So that early warning is published in Bhuvan portal of ISRO. This is a case where in the Simla we have combining susceptibility with the rainfall intensity, and this kind of matrix table where we have a severe category susceptibility, then we have probability of high probability of rainfall, then we give it as a red color, that is 1. Okay, otherwise it is a watch or advisory category. So this kind of experimental system is available now. We try to improve upon that, as we know that this is an indirect method. We are not measuring the kinematics of the landslides, so we are trying to take the help of satellite interferometry to monitor the displacement. This is in advanced stage, and we are trying to do jointly with Geological Survey of India how best we can do a landslide regional early warning system in India. Now I'm done with landslide. Now I move it to the earthquake disaster. Here we, as you know, the earthquake particularly they occur because of the movement of tectonic plates, and particularly in India is concerned, we have the Himalayan belt, which is basically a result of collision between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. It's a convergent tectonics. So the Himalayas is still rising because its plate is still under thrusting. Indian plate is still under thrusting. So that's the most prone area for future occurrence of earthquake. So naturally our effort is, yeah, this is another geological map showing different regional structures, particularly the main frontal thrust system, which is basically the line which is separating the shallow north dipping line, which is separating our Indian plate with Eurasian plate, and on top of that is our Himalayan wedge is sitting. And then with that, we have a lot of further supine types thrust system, like main boundary thrust, main central thrust, etc. So these are the places where most of the time the earthquake occurs. So from remote sensing perspective, we can map the regional fault. In this case, you can see this is a Don Valley, northern part of India, where you can find Yamuna Tier fault, Ganga Tier fault, and then you have a MFT and MCT. All kind of regional features can be very well mapped. Of course, they have already been mapped, and the maps are available in terms of seismotectonic atlas of India. But then certain features with active tectonics, they can be further updated using satellite data. Here you can see the regional, so like Karakoram fault, we also can map. And this is another area where you can see a lot of liquefaction happening. Because strike slip movement of the Karakoram fault here, you can see the linear fashion where in the alluvial France, the water seepage is happening. The water is oozing out because there is still movement happening. So these are the active fault systems. And these are the places where the future chances of occurrence of earthquakes are quite high. This case study which I am showing is basically the Nepal earthquake, we known as the Gorkha earthquake, 25th April 2015, and then followed by a Dholaga earthquake, 12 May 2015. The twin earthquake did a lot of damage to Nepal, and we at ISRO studied that event using Indian satellites and with the foreign satellites. A lot of satellites came from USGS, from CNES, from DLR, from Roscosmos, and then many other countries, SAARC countries and Asian countries also. This is the image. You can see our own satellite, Indian satellite of Cartosat-2, and we can see there is a playground, open ground in Kathmandu, which was now occupied with temporary tents. Okay, there are relief shelters. You can find out the people are coming there because a lot of aftershocks were there. They were afraid of going to their homes, so they are living in the cars and the tents outside temporarily for 2-3 days. And this is a play days image where you can see the famous Dharahara Tower. You can see the left side is the pre-earthquake, right side is the post-earthquake, and the tower was complete. These are the few administrative building in Nepal. Uh, we have visited Nepal, Kathmandu, and found to do a damage assessment, and these are the pictures we have collected after the earthquake. This is a valley walking landslide. It is quite remote, bordering Tibet in Nepal, and this information was very useful to the government of Nepal to find out whether it's a safe, because if sometimes it may breach, then down slope or downstream areas will be flooded. This is another disaster volcano. We have done some study, but they are limited. What we do is use thermal band satellite data to find out the temperature of the vent of that vent of the volcano. And okay, this is a regional geology, as you know. Our oceanic plate being denser compared to the continental plate, they go underneath, and when they go underneath sufficiently, there is an increase in the pressure and temperature, then that leads to a partial melting of the oceanic slab, and that leads to a creation of a volcanic arc system. So in India, particularly our this Java Trench, then our barren island, these are the places where we see a lot of volcanic activity. And this is a picture of active volcanic eruption and the lava delta you can see in the barren island, and a 3D view in the central part, like a conical mountain you see, that's basically small cinder cone, and the collapsed caldera also can be seen in this picture. This is quite interesting slide in a way, like here we have not used thermal band satellite, but we have used a multispectral LIS-3 image. You can see LIS-3 have a sweet band that is basically from 1.5 to 1.7. Okay, so as for the winds displacement law, as the temperature increases, the maximum spectral radiance shifts towards the lower wavelength side. Okay, that means even though we don't have a thermal band, because the temperature in the volcano is more than in the order of 1000 degrees centigrade, so we expect the signatures in the sweet band also. So here you can see the central part, slightly red color marked as 1 is basically where the volcanic eruption is happening. Then we have a cloud and the volcanic ash cloud also, then your rain bearing cloud, all can see. This is Mount Mayon in Philippines. We studied a couple of years back, wherein we found out the lava flows using high resolution cartosat to image. Okay, so then we have the recently this year Sinabung eruption in Indonesia, wherein we try to find out what are the lava flows, what is the vent temperature using Sentinel-2 images. But of course, there was cloud cover in the vent, so we couldn't get much results. But this is how the volcanic studies can be done using satellite images. This is my last part of the presentation for the coal mine fire mapping. Here exclusively we use thermal band image from Aster, from Landsat 8, etc. This is a winds. This is Planck's equation, which you can use to find out the temperature of coal fires, because we lose a lot of economic resources because coal burns automatically, okay, through spontaneous combustion. And by burning coal, the coal seams they turn into ash, and the top part where the people are living, they collapse. So that's basically a subsidence happen in mines where it's a big disaster. So we try to map the coal fire, and by mapping historical the coal fire from 1988 for a Jharia coal field in India, we have estimated the fire dynamics, what way fire is moving. So that way the people, it's a densely populated area because people have livelihood, they don't want to move out of the place. So by using the coal fire dynamics, you can see what direction the coal fire is moving. This is the mine coal fire map for Jharia coal field. And similarly, we try to find out coal area wise how much area is affected by coal mine fire. This is the Raniganj coal fields again. The Gondwana coal seams, the Barakar formation is they are the high grade coals in India. Because of that, we are losing a lot of coal. So try to find out what the area they are affected by coal, and then the authorities can do some mitigation to stop the further burning of the precious coal resources. So with this, I come to end of my presentation. I ran through rapidly. I'm not sure whether all of you have could able to grasp something, but then I'm now done with this presentation. Over to you.
Oh, thank you
Rajiv.
very much, Tabas, because at least the students got an idea what ISRO or NRC is doing when a natural hazard occur. That is my intention too, because they should not think that all the organization are ideal. Every organization is playing their own role to mitigate, to manage all those geohazards. So there is a question for you in the chat box. Can you answer that one, Tabas?
Let me see.
What is the reason for frequent occurrences of landslides in J&K region, and which is the foremost contributing factor?
Yeah. Yeah, see, this is a contribution, foremost contribution varies from place to place. J&K is a big area. We have in 2014 there were heavy rainfall in J&K, so that was the cause of lands and primary cause. And then in 2005 we have the Kashmir earthquake. Okay, so that triggered a lot of landslides. So a combination of seismic cause as well as rainfall, and of course the geological it is very fragile. We have all kind of thrust and faults are there. The Riasit thrust, the MCT, so that makes J&K very prone to landslide. The study which we did, we have 2 districts in the top 10 in J&K. So I would say that J&K, Uttarakhand, Kerala, and Sikkim, they are the states which are prone to a disaster.
Yes, you have 2 compliments. One is from Rajanish and the other is from Dr. Saju Menacheri. He is the next session handling from tomorrow. And I think, thank you very much. As time is crossed, thank you very much, Tabas, for joining us and sharing your views and all our ideas. Obviously, people might come to know your stand, your organization stand for all those things. Thank you very much, Tabas. And before winding up, okay, thank you. And before winding up, I will share one screen with the permission of Professor Linto. Can I share one small advertisement, please?
Yeah, sure,
Dr.
sir, please. Yeah.
Okay. And especially this is for Dr. Saju Menacheri. Dr. Saju Menacheri. Actually, we are coming with a special edition or special issue in energy geosciences, and for all the participants here, it is an Elsevier journal, a newly launched journal. Not that it is impact factor is yet to come, and a special issue on remote sensing in energy resources. Guest editors are myself and Professor Thomas Woman, who have delivered the talk yesterday. And you can, if you go to the editorial manager, you go scroll below, there is a place where remote sensing session is there. You can highlight it and start sending your manuscripts if possible, and consider this as a promotion. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So my session is over. I am once again thanking for the patience from the participants, and thanking Dr. Lindo, Asha, and their team for giving an opportunity. Thank you all.
Okay. Before officially concluding the session by Asha, let me say a few words of appreciation to Dr. Sajin, because the moment I expressed this idea that why don't you take up this as a as a session chair and organize the program on geohazards, he has happily agreed to it, and with a great effort, he has really made it to the international standard, and he has got so many speakers from UN and also from abroad. Thank you so much, Dr. Sajin, for taking your effort and time in making this session wonderful. And both the days you have made it to the point that all participants had the opportunity to interact with the speakers and to made it very interactive. So yesterday and today also we had a wonderful session. Thank you so much. You have done a great job as a session chair and also coordinator, one of the coordinators of this program. Thank you so much. Now it is over to you, Ms. Asha, to conclude the session. Thank you all the participants once again.
So that brings an end to our second session, Geohazards Mitigation and Management. Indeed, it was a very interesting session, and a big thank you to Dr. Sajjan Kumar KS for running the session smoothly. And also, I thank the eminent speakers who have done their presentation, and also the participants who are still here even in this extra hour. And we will be back with another interesting session on November 27th, which will be handled by Dr. Saju Menacheri. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us here. Thank you. Bye.